You ready, buddy? I'm excited.
I'm ready. Yeah.
I'm excited for this one because you and I have only met like on the professional side of things. We haven't actually had a time to
Yeah.
sit down. We met on the golf course,
Mm-hmm.
bullshitted a little bit about some future work we got coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you invited us to one of your networking classes, which I never in a million years would ever have gone.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. That's
Yeah, is that right?
Not my thing.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah, and I came home, her and I was like, and then, I brought my buddy Zach, and
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, that was not completely judged. You see
Yeah.
that. I'm
Yeah.
one of those,
Yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
I do it all myself.
Mhm.
I'm one of those, and then obviously with the work and everything that's coming to the Northwest, so then with Mac, I was like, hey, he invited me to this thing, and he's like, what do you think? I'm like, I'm gonna go. Like, if you never know, like,
Yeah.
right? It's operation, get as much shit as we can get up
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
yeah, we went, and man, that was great. And so then obviously you and I kind of bullshit a little bit and started digging in, and I was like, oh damn, okay, like you've done a lot of stuff on the law enforcement side,
Yeah.
which I found really interesting. When I want to dig in, I want to start there, and then I want to roll into everything you're doing now with these classes and just the networking and everything. I mean, being able to bring my daughter along and she's able to experience it. That was the coolest part for me, is watching her work.
Yeah.
Just being able to be a kid there. And I mean, I think half the people thought she was either my wife, which was really awkward.
Yeah, that would be awkward. Yeah.
So which was really weird situation, because my wife's been by my side for everything for 15 years. And so now that she's at this age, it's her coming with me. And so I actually introduced her, like, this is my wife, Christy. I'm like, my daughter, Christy. Like, and it was so weird. The guy was
so
like,
you're the one that made it weird then.
well, just other people already had thought. I don't know if it was like subconscious. They're like, so is this your, and, me so much older. They're looking at me like I'm some like cradle robber, have some young wife. I'm like, this is my daughter. She's 16, and so it was funny. But the way that she conducts and holds herself, I mean, I get it. She doesn't look like a teenager. So yeah, and that was awesome. And then watch her work the room and be able to network was one of those like checks, like, okay. All right, we're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
so,
man. Yeah.
But, dude, why don't you give me a little intro about yourself, a little background, and then we're just going to dive right into it.
Right on, man. Well, I would say, first and foremost, I'm a husband and a dad.
Yep.
Married 18 and a half years, got a incredible 15 and a half year old son. Origin story wise, I grew up in a really pretty chaotic environment with just constant moving, constant restarts, and
military.
No, just with my mom having a very skewed thought process when it came to relationships. So I've met one other person that's been able to rival this record that I have, which is the number of divorces that she's experienced. So she's on her 9th divorce now, and so each one of the moves was just a new relationship that was
That's
blossoming.
An accomplishment.
It is. Yeah.
9 divorce. When did this start? When did your parents split?
So, I mean, my biological dad, I was 3 years old. My mom was pregnant with my little brother.
Okay.
So she was 7 months along with him, and he was just this raging alcoholic, abusive type. So she took her last ass beating when I was 3. She was 7. My older brother was 6. He came home drunk, beat her, passed out. She packed up the car. This was in San Francisco.
Okay.
So we drove down to Southern California, and she didn't have anywhere to go. So there's a picture of me on this little dock right next to this little boat, and that's where we lived for a while. So this little cabin area of a tiny little boat. It's got little one bed, no restroom or anything like that inside of it. And so I don't know exactly how long we were there for, but it was a little while. But it was the better alternative than staying where she was at. And then one of the first memories I have after this had left, my mom had my little brother. We met at a Target parking lot somewhere in California, and I remember those two being off to the side having a conversation. But
your mom and your biological dad. Okay.
Yep. And he was saying, look, like, if you don't charge child support, I'll write off all rights to these boys. Yep. And
really?
Yep. And so she took that deal. They both honored their end of the bargain, and I didn't hear from him. There was one random phone call that came in from him. I actually answered the phone. This was like maybe 4 or 5 years later, and he's like, hey, is this Matt? I'm like, yeah. He's like, hey, this is your dad. I'm all, it like really caught me off guard. And so
how old were you at this point?
I was around 7 or 8.
Oh, okay. So you're still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, old enough to know, but now, we're living in a little apartment in Redlands, California at the time. And so it was my, my 2 brothers and my 2 sisters were all living in this 2-bedroom apartment. So myself and brothers shared a little room. My sisters had a room, and then my mom and the new husband at the time were sleeping in a like hide-a-bed in the living room. And but that was my normal, dude. That's like,
you didn't know any different.
I didn't know any different. It was just the way we were doing life.
Yeah.
And I will say that while my mom always tended to be gravitated towards these terrible relationships.
So is she picking just winners, or what's the deal?
Well, dude, she swears that this is a true story. Okay, you ready for this? I've challenged her on it. She says no, it actually happened. But she swears that while she was walking down the aisle to marry my father, that my grandmother stopped her midway walking down the aisle. Guys standing at the altar waiting, and she gets a tug from my grandmother and says, "Hey, if this doesn't work out, you can just divorce, right?" On the way to get married,
really?
to give the and
that's how you want to start a marriage.
I'm like, Mom, there's no way that. She's like, that actually happened. And and my grandmother, apparently just had the same kind of upbringing where she didn't understand what it meant to be in a healthy relationship. Okay. And that cycle didn't get broken with my mom. So while I was 10, I remember I had a friend that was over. We're looking at trophies in the room, and I've got several different trophies, and a few of them have different last names on it, because every time she would get married, we would take the new last name. Yeah. So I'm in there with a friend, and we're looking at these trophies, and I'm all proud of them, and he's like, "Why do they got different last names?" I'm like, "Well," and I explained the scenario. I'm like, "Wait, you don't have different last names on your trophies?" He's like, "No, dude, they're all the same. Like, my mom still married the same guy." And that was like when I realized my normal was not normal, and what was happening in my house wasn't.
That is so sad. But you don't know any. It's just like kids that grow up in extreme poverty, and these kids in different, or they just don't know any different. But I mean, not healthy.
No, but I will say that I didn't know how many kids I would have. I didn't know what being an adult would look like, and when I would get married, but I did know that I was not going to do to myself, to my future wife, to however many kids I had in the future. I would not do to them what I was growing up in. So I was very young when I made the commitment to break the cycle, and I look back now, and I am able to tie a lot of the superpowers that I have, the ways in which I'm very successful in business and the different things we've got going on, directly to the lessons that I learned from this upbringing, For sure. And so even in the law enforcement side, like I really did well in the whole SWAT thing and the chaotic environment that was there, because things just don't get me riled up. And I contribute that to the fact that when I had so many different restarts and moving around and having to go to new schools and meet new people. In Southern California, at one point we were in Palm Springs, and I was the minority in that school, so I was getting picked on, but because of that, I developed this sense of like, it's going to be fine. Like, there's no point in getting all riled up. It's all going to be fine. And that became part of my personality, which later on in the whole SWAT world allowed for me to just always keep a very cool head and like not have to have emotion.
You learn to live with the chaos. Okay. I mean, so stressful environments, never having, a steady home. You channeled all that into
and just like figure it out.
This ain't shit now.
Yeah, just figure it out. It's it's gonna be fine. I just gotta like, and I also contribute to my ability to read a room, read people really well. See around corners of things. I'm a visionary by way of I can see an outcome that I want to achieve and be able to reverse engineer it in my mind, and I had to do that as a kid. My mom was very preoccupied most of my childhood with these relationships, and then my little sister, Molly, was severely handicapped. She was born with her umbilical cord wrapped around her neck, so she was deprived of oxygen.
My brother did too. They didn't think came out completely purple.
Yeah,
And
really?
he's fine, but they thought for
No brain damage?
none.
Oh, wow.
They said it was a miracle. Like there's pictures of him when he first came out.
Wow.
The whole baby, this purple baby. I mean, umbilical cord wrapped.
That's
But
wild.
they told my mom, they're like, expect it, and yeah, it's completely.
That's amazing, dude. My little sister was severely mentally
Man,
handicapped.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I mean she was a real blessing in her life. She passed away a handful of years ago. In fact, this tattoo is a memorial of her. Her favorite thing in the world was Annie, and so had this done by a buddy of mine out of Austin, Texas, Andy Foe. But yeah, man, there's ways of looking at our past and to say, is the past going to define the present, or am I going to let my present define the past? And I've chosen to let my present define the past and look at the ways in which it's helped me thrive,
For sure.
versus use it as a crutch and reasons why I would make bad decisions, and that's why I'm very proud of how long I've been married, and
It's
that
definitely
I
an
kept
accomplishment,
the commitment.
especially in these days, man. It seems we talk about it. It is one of our biggest talking points, especially you have a teenage son, us having a teenage daughter. You start now; these kids, the problems are setting in that have been developed to this point. Is how we look at it. And every one of these boys and girls that we're seeing and we're hearing about and watching, and her friends we've watched from little kids to now, all of them that have these attention issues, which mainly it's attention is what we see with it, and just not getting the right amount of love and care, and moving, all of them broken homes. Every one of them broken homes.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. Even if the parents that are co-parenting together your kid is still having to pack a bag. Your kid's still not laying their head on their bed every single night, and that affects these kids.
Sure, yeah,
big time. And when you step back and you watch, you truly watch these kids develop. Granted, I get it. There's kids that are in beautiful homes, parents are multimillionaires, have everything going, and they grow up completely fucked. I get it, but all these, especially in the girl side of things, it's so much, and every one of them are broken homes.
Yeah,
every one of them, and it's just that is why it was so important for us. Like no matter what, we will fucking get through it. We're not. It's not even an option.
Yeah.
And it's scary, but and for you, I heard this guy the other day, he was talking, and he's like, you have two brothers that grew up with an alcoholic father, and one of them grows up and he's an alcoholic, and man, how'd you become an alcoholic? My dad was an alcoholic. And then you talk to the other one, it's this entrepreneur and very successful. Man, how'd you grow up to be this way? Oh, my dad was an alcoholic. I wanted nothing to be like him.
Right.
And so when you hear that, you're like,
yeah.
It's your, so for you, instead of you being like, woe is me, I grew up in a shitty home, I have all these fathers and all these last names, I'm going to continue that path. You went, well, my mom was this, so I'm going to break that generational curse, and I'm going to make sure I'm a good father and a good husband, and that's my excuse. And that's how you have to look at it. And, once I heard that, I was like, holy shit, you have two choices. You can, well, woe is me, I'm like this because my dad was like this, or my mom was like this, or I'm like this because my parents were like this and I want nothing to be like them. It's the same. I mean, everybody has that. And
we all get to sit in the driver's seat of our own life, like if we choose to, right? And that's the thing, is that the more people realize that at all times we have the power and control to change our circumstances. Like if we don't like our circumstances, we maintain that power and control. Whether we exercise it or not is a different story. And it can be more work at times than others, but you got to be willing to do the work.
That's why I got out of the military. I sat there. I'll never forget. I can take you to the exact spot that it clicked, and I was like, "This isn't for me." And I was watching my senior staff NCOs. There was a forklift. They just dropped off like a pallet of track blocks. We were replacing a track on a tank. And the forklift's like this far off the ground, and they're all standing there with their morning coffees, and they're all looking at each other, talking and bouncing on the forks of this forklift. And I was like, that's who I have to work for the rest of my career. I was like, absolutely not. And then I started looking, and once that light was like, I don't know if because when I joined the Marine Corps, I was like, I'm careering it. I'm going to stay in. I'm retiring from the military. I'm going to retire a Marine. And then when it hit me, and then I really started watching, and I'm like, man, all of these dudes are miserable. They have shit relationships with their children and families and their wives. Most of them are divorced. They all sit here till 6, 7 o'clock at night because they don't want to go home. And that's the cycle. And I sat there and I'm like, I don't want this. Like, this sucks. And then it got to the point where I was like, God, I got to put on this uniform every day. I was like, okay, it's time. It's time for me to go. And, you know, and a lot of guys, they're scared and they don't know what to do. And we were just having this conversation this morning because she was asking, like, was it scary when you got out? I'm like, yeah. Guaranteed paycheck. It took an act of Congress to bust me down because I was a staff NCO. TRICARE, full medical. I mean, you have you cannot get, unless you commit a felony or get something major in trouble, you have a guaranteed job and paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's what I think holds a lot of those guys. And then they're miserable. Then it just festers and it's up to you to change your future. You change your stars. You could realign whatever you want. And that's when I went home and I told Britt, I was like, I'm done. I'm getting out. And she's like, what do you mean you're getting out? I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was coming up for another reenlistment. And I had actually just turned in my reenlistment package to do another 4 years. And I was trying to go MARSOC and I was trying to change that. And it all fell apart. And they weren't taking any staff and they actually weren't taking any sergeants and above. And I was like, that was my only little cry to stay in, my little sliver of hope. Like, okay, if I can go this route and get the hell out of this MOS, like, cool, I'll give it a try. And then when they pulled the rug from me, I went home. I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to live these guys. She's like, what are you going to do? And I literally told her, I was like, I will flip burgers at In-N-Out if I have to. I'm not doing this another day. And I went in the next day to the career planner that already had my reenlistment package. I was like, hey man, I just want to check it out, see if I could get a jump school or dive school as like a reenlistment bonus. And they're like, well, we're not giving. There's really none getting out. I was like, I just want to fill one in just in case. And he handed it to me. I turned around and shredded my reenlistment package right in front of him. And he looks at me like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm out. And I went to my gunny and I was like, guns, I'm out. And he goes, Bam, if I were to do it over again, I would get out at 8 years. He's like, you do another 4 years, you're in. You're stuck. Wow. And I was like, that's all I had to hear. Yeah. And he was an awesome gunny. This dude, he was one of those ones, like he would have been me if he stayed in longer than he should have, but he was, what do you do? You know, you're already halfway to your retirement. It doesn't make sense unless you go. I had a buddy that did another 4 and he ended up going embassy. Now he's a U.S. Marshal and he's loving life, but he's built for that. Yeah. And so that was it, man. And I was like, I have to change my path. I'm going to be miserable the rest of my life. I'd rather be miserable on the outside doing my own thing, not having to work for these assholes.
You know what's wild about that, dude, is when you really boil it down, you were observing a couple of guys in your leadership ranks, right? Like, and because you see the way that they were conducting themselves and projecting that could be your future, your entire trajectory changed. And it's wild because you hear leadership's always the problem, it's always the solution, and a story like that, it just emphasizes like how when you're in a leadership role, people are paying attention, and when people lose faith in the leadership structure, they'll start pulling the ripcord and changing course. And now there's other factors involved, and you've done some time, but for sure, that point where you came to that conclusion after watching a couple of guys that were more senior than you. Is that right? Because they were
yes, they're all my gunnies. So I was a staff. I was a staff sergeant. I was E6, but I was watching it was gunnies and mass sergeants sitting there that morning, and I was watching them. And we were actually teaching heavy machine guns. We had the 50 cals and the 40 millimeter grenade launchers. We have all of our students there, and I'm sitting there. We have these back bench seats on the back of our vehicles, and their back ramps down. And I'm sitting there watching my instructors give the period of instruction on these weapons because I was the platoon sergeant. And I'm watching, and I look up, and they're all, and they're all giggling. And I looked at them like, if those were my sergeants doing that, these dudes would be out of this battalion. Get the fuck out! What are you? They'd be chewing ass, especially in front of students. And I'm like, these are my bosses. Nope, nope, nothing. Some of them were some good dudes, but I think the biggest problem with the military that I saw is the good guys that are like, man, I can do something with my life. Yeah. I can start a business. I didn't know what I wasn't one of those, right? Yeah. But those types of guys, all of them get out. Then you're stuck with this. No offense, anybody from Kentucky, the South, but the majority of those dudes stay in. Then that's who's your leadership, and they're the biggest retards you've ever met in your life. And you're like, this. I sat here all week. And now it's a Friday afternoon, and you're just now telling me we have to clean 5 or 7 mod deuce 50 cals that take days to do, and we have to do this before I can cut my guys out of here? Nah, go home.
Yeah.
Go home. Don't answer your phones. Get out of here. I would tell them, get out. Don't answer your phone.
Yeah.
Where the fuck are your guys at? I cut them out. What? Get them back here. Call everyone right in front of them.
Yeah.
Speakerphone.
Yeah.
They answered, hey, you got to come back. But they knew.
Yeah.
Do not answer your phones. That's who I was. Like, I looked out after my guys because I had one staff sergeant. His name was, Staff Sergeant Matt, and he ended up picking up Gunny right before he got out. He was one of the greatest leaders. The greatest leader. Never yelled. He was like the dad. He would be like, hey, you fucked up. And you'd be like, damn. I get my ass chewed all day. I turn around like, this dude, chewing my ass I'm one of those people. Like, you could chew, okay, buddy. Like, you're not intimidating to me. But when you respect somebody, and it's like your dad telling you, like, you really let me down. That's how this guy was, because he was that incredible as a leader. We deployed together. The guy was incredible, and he got out. I was like, God, there's nobody left.
Yeah.
Except for these just idiots. There's some good ones in that I did, but I didn't work for them. For some reason and so it was it. When that light bulb went off, I was like, I'm not doing this a day longer than I have to. And I told the wife, I'm done. What are you going to do? I'll flip burgers in and out. I ended up going straight back to Afghan on a contract. I got a job offer to go straight back overseas, which, like, you don't know what you're going to do, but that was it. I was like, there it is. That's all. That's my little bit of hope. I can make it, and I'll make it work from there. And so, that was it. I didn't even tell anybody. I got out, and people were calling me, oh, where are you? I was like, I'm done. I didn't tell anybody.
How long after you shredded the paperwork that you were fully separated?
It was within, I want to say 6 months or less. But the thing was, my previous job where I was working, I worked for one of the most senior master guns in the Marine Corps, and he wouldn't charge us any leave dates. This dude, he was one of the good ones, but I was never in my chain of command. I was working up at division as the division, 1st Marine Division color sergeant, and I fell underneath this guy's name was Gunny French. He was the most badass dude you ever worked for. And I'd be like, hey, Master Guns, like, I'm going to take a week off, leave. I'd submit my paperwork, and he's like, I'm not, you're good, go.
Yeah.
Don't get arrested. If you do, call me. So he didn't charge for over 2 years, I saved all of my leave dates. I never burned any of my vacation time. So when it come to time to get out, you can sell back. They only let you max a certain amount that you can take to get out early or early out. So I maxed as many days as I could take out, which was like 2 months early. And then I sold back all of my other time. So I ended up getting paid for all the days I couldn't take. And then I got out early. And plus I was an instructor. And so I was teaching officers at the time, and officer classes were like maybe twice a year because you have to let the class build up to get enough students to actually host the class. So we weren't doing anything. We just fucked off all day. So I just stopped coming in. And long story short, when I got my paperwork, they ended up screwing up and giving me my DD-214, which is your thumbprint to being a veteran. They gave me it, and they put the date on it. They put the wrong date on it. They put it like 3 months early. Oh. And I saw that. I was like, I'm out. And they would call me like, you got duty, you're not out yet. And I'm like, come get me. It's a crazy story, which I could tell some other time. But so I ended up I pretty much got out like almost 6 months early. Like, I turned in the paperwork, and then I had bought back time, had all my other leave dates, and then I just stopped coming to work because I had they screwed up and gave me my DD-214. So I was done, and I didn't tell anybody because I didn't get. They do like a little getting out or retiring plaque and going away, and they didn't. I mean, I had guys calling me like, "Yo, where are you? I haven't seen you at work in forever." I'm like, "I'm out."
Did you get your paddle?
I didn't get anything.
Wow.
Nothing. Nobody even knew I got out.
So if those guys that were bouncing on that forklift were much more like Gunny French, do you think you'd still be in?
I don't know. I've never thought of that, actually. That was like the aha moment that started the hourglass, where I was like, God, I got to work for these dudes for 15 more years, plus years. And so it's just, at that point I was ready, and then it's like when you have a roommate and everything's cool at first, and then you start to get on each other, and then just hearing him breathe or your roommate walk around, and you're like, that's how it was for me. I'd go to work and just the smell I hated. I hated putting on my camis. It got to the point where I would just come to work like, fuck, like, God. And I was a weird Marine because I always looked at the Marine Corps as a 9 to 5. I was never like, rah rah gun kill Marine Corps. Like it was never me. I joined because I wanted to serve my country, but I wasn't born to be a Marine. I love being a Marine. I love the title of being a Marine. I'll hold on to that forever. I mean, that is a chapter of my life that, you know, not a lot of people can ever claim. But as far as like just hardcore embedded in the Marine Corps, like I could give a fuck about any of that shit. I left all my uniforms at work. I'd ride to work, get in them. I'd go home in civilian clothes every day. It was a 9-to-5 job for me. It was so hard for other people to comprehend that.
Do you ever like second guess that decision afterwards?
Never once. The only thing I've ever missed about the Marine Corps are my boys.
Of course, yeah.
Guys I deploy with, and then my instructors. I had the best team, and so it was nice being able to leave on that, and like, all right, guys, like, I'm sorry, and they were bummed because there wasn't besides my best friend that's a U.S. Marshal now. There wasn't any other guys like us that we didn't like. When you yell, I feel like yelling is a sign of poor leadership.
Sure.
If you have to scream all day long at your guys, it's not working. And so I would tell my guys like, "Yo, we fucked up. Y'all messed up. Like I'm sorry. Don't make me be an asshole. You know." And so I was that. And so they never once they learned, hey, cool, Staff Sergeant Marshal, like we can get away with murder. Just do your job. Do your job. Get it done. Hey, you guys got nothing going on? Go home. Close them up. Go home. I'm not going to make you sit here just because. I'll sit here all day. Cool. Get out of here. And so that's who we were as leader. That's who I was as a leader.
Yeah.
My guys were sweeping. I was sweeping with them. My guys were cleaning weapons. I was cleaning weapons with them.
Yeah.
And we got everything done so much faster. Everything was done better. We had the highest test scores of all of our students because my instructors, they knew if I can get them out of it or not having to do something or we could finish early or cut them loose early, they knew it was going to happen. So get it all done. But if they came down like, hey, Susan, we're done. Hey, is this and this done? No. Go get it done. Let me know when it's done. They'd go bust their ass, get it done. Cool. Get out of here. Don't answer your phones. Like that was the daily thing.
Yeah.
Don't answer your phone.
Yeah. I'm sure your guys were probably super bummed when you left.
They were devastated. They were, please, man, please, like, you know. And so obviously after I left, they got a new staff NCO, and I even got those guys because of how belligerent I was. I'm one of those, like, I'm swimming against the stream every single, no matter what it is. I'm going to go do the opposite. And this team was built of all of these same type guys.
Yeah.
So other staff NCOs had problems with them. It couldn't be controlled. They were just belligerent assholes. I mean, my whole team were just absolute belligerent, just fucks of Marines. And I show up and I was like, listen, I was you. I still am. I just have more rank on me. If I can get you out of here, cool. If not, like, let's just get the job done. I do not want to be here another second than I have to be. I hate this place.
Yeah.
So if you're going to make me be here, all of our lives are going to be miserable. If you guys don't make me be here any longer, you guys get to go home and get out of here. I'll take the bullet for it. And they were like, shit, this is great. And so, yeah, I never had any problems. I'd be like, everything was done ahead of time. I was like, hey, get it done. And once we learned that routine, it was great. And they loved it. I mean, we were gone. All, you know, other staff and COs were like, oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, I'm just making them sit there all day. They got families. All these dudes got deployments. Half my guys had Purple Hearts. Just got back. Like, go home.
Yeah.
Go. We're instructors. We don't even have students. Why are you going to make your guy? So that's who I was, and it didn't jive with who I personally was. And then obviously the political game I do not play.
Where did you pick up those types of leadership skills to show up in that way, especially considering that wasn't the norm in the Corps? How did you learn that showing up for your guys? Like if they're going to be sweeping, you're sweeping. If you know, like looking out for them the way they did. Did you pick that up from somewhere? Or did someone lead you that way prior?
I had a couple of when I was a troop. One of my crew chiefs was a really good crew chief, and he would be doing things with us. And when we get it done, he wouldn't just make you. I don't believe in they call them fuck games, right? Just look busy, bust Russ. You just look. I remember sitting on the back in my vehicle Friday afternoon as a troop. We're on the beach. I was stationed in Del Mar, right on Pendleton. So I mean, the beach is 100 yards. You hear it. You hear the women laughing. You smell the barbecues. It's a Friday afternoon in August, and I'm busting rust on a bolt. Look busy. That's what they tell us. Look busy. We don't have anything to do. Look busy. I just I feel like a normal person. Like this is the dumbest shit. Why do I have to look busy. We have nothing to do. There's always something to do. I get it. We have giant armored vehicles and tank. I get it. There's always something to it's Friday. We had something to do all week. It's Friday. Like, and so when I always told myself, like, God, one day when I'm in fucking charge, one day when I'm in charge, this isn't going to fly. And so, yeah, then finally I started picking up rank, and I was able to tell people to fuck off. This is my platoon.
Yeah.
And I just ran it how I wanted to run it. Like, go to chow, guys. Get out of here. Go to chow. Take an extra hour. Don't come back until you can get 2 hours.
How many guys are in a platoon?
Depends on, like, as an instructor, I think we had 7 vehicles, so I had 7 crew chiefs, and then I think we'd have an average on like 60 to 70 kids, about 10 kids per vehicle. That's where Mac and I were instructors together, and we were martial arts instructors together. He was, that motherfucker, dude. So he was the platform instructor because he was very, you've met him a few times, so he's very like proper. He could rub elbows and play that game. I wasn't, so I was the practical application instructor. So I was down on the ramp with the instructors. We were in the trenches. We're the ones that are going to the field. Mac would just ride in the Humvee and roll up like, "How's it going, man?" I'm like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Did you bring us burritos? And he'd be like, like that was Mac. And so that was our dynamic. And so I was the field training staff NCO, and Mac was the platform, office guy. Did all the paperwork and all that good stuff. So it's just. For me, that was my environment. That's where I thrived in the field, deploying, get the job, get it done. That was it. So,
but Mac wasn't always on the sidelines because
he
told me a story about a time where you jumped a Humvee or a Bearcat or something, and so he was. Yeah, it sounds like he was around for some of the action.
He would come right around and stuff. Yeah, he'd be in the field with us, and we always just gave him a hard time because he would always just he was just back, He ended up screwing me one time. He came down. He's like, "Yo, I signed you up for this class." And I'm like, "What?" Because I was always begging. I'm like, "Yo, send me to like jump school or something." Because he had that power. He's like, "Dude, I got you in a course, badass course." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "It's the AUL course, which is the officer leader, staff NCO leadership course, which was, I was an instructor for it, but I dodged ever going through it." I was devastated. It sucks. That class sucks. You're in the classroom all day learning everything you already know. Like, you're just trying to stay awake. Yeah, him and I got in a fight over that one. I was pretty butthurt out with him. But anyways, back to you, dude. That was a long rant for me. But
no, man, it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, there's so many different ties to, my world's business, right?
Yeah.
And so you're just highlighting the fact of like how important leadership is, and that we're always being watched when we're in leadership
100%.
roles, and when you show up for your team in ways that you actually genuinely care for them. And you're unafraid to go against grain, and they genuinely feel and know that you have their best interests in mind.
Yeah.
Like they'll go to war for you. I mean, literally, like in your case, literally, they'll go to war for you. But the same is true in business. As we're building, businesses that we want to have be creating massive impact and positive influence on people's lives, whatever the business is. We want to improve people's lives as a result, and we can't do it alone. Like, not if it's going to be a big business, not if it's going to really be something special. And so we need people to be on the team, and we need people to be fully locked on to what our vision is and the mission that we're on. And we spend a lot of time looking for the right people that are in it for the long haul. And it's devastating. I do a lot of coaching and consulting for mainly doctors and medical providers in the functional medicine, naturopathic space. But turnover is a real problem for entrepreneurs. And what many entrepreneurs fail to realize is that when they have high standards for their people that they themselves don't hold, and ensure that they are first and foremost rising to those standards. Before they require anybody else to. It's that whole "do as I say, not as I do" thing. People know a hypocrite when they see one, right?
Quick.
And nobody wants to work with a hypocrite. Nobody wants to help a hypocrite build a profitable business so they can have all the toys and all the fun. They don't want to be part of a team like that.
I've
So
worked for teams like that.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah,
Because morale. I think the biggest part of that is morale.
Yeah.
As soon as you lose morale in your team, your staff, you're done.
Yeah, man. I mean, because a lot of times they come together, and then that's where like a coup or some sort of mutiny will form, right? Because now they're all seeing it the same way, and they're probably right. I mean, you know, guys that took issue with those that were on the forklift or whatever. Like when you see somebody in a leadership role, you're like, man, you tell me I have to do this, and you get on my ass when I do these things, but yet you're over here doing something very similar, and it's okay for you to do, and just because you want to pull rank, you know, nobody respects something like that, and there's no longevity to people being part of that team, or maybe they'll stick around because it's a better alternative for now, but they're not. They're doing it just to not get into trouble, just to buy time, you know, just until the next opportunity arises. But they're really not there to help you build. And that's,
but then you're not seeing your numbers grow, productivity or sales or building. I mean, they might be hitting their numbers, but you're never ahead. It's because, I mean, they still, it's like, why am I going to put an extra hour and we're almost done? We could finish this up right now. Or like, fuck, let's go home.
Yeah.
Screw this guy. Like, rolls up, brand new giant truck bitching at us all day. And we're out here and these guys are struggling.
Yeah.
He's not out here in the rain and the freezing cold. They just had a sleet storm roll through and we're laying shingles. And this guy rolls up and barks orders from his truck window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then it just, the cancer gets set.
Yeah.
And then it just slowly starts chipping away. Mm-hmm. The one guy turns into two, and before you know, your whole team is just.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you know, for people who are having challenges with their teams, like, look inward. Like,
always.
You know, are you a you know, Gunny French, or are you the you know, the dipshits on a forklift?
Exactly.
You know, and depending on where you fall depends on, like, you know, how locked on your team is and what you're able to produce. But I mean, it's because of pride and ego, a lot of guys will look outward when they're having issues.
That's exactly what it comes to, is pride and ego. Mm-hmm. And they want to point fingers at everything else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. God, it's the most frustrating thing too, especially, you know, not always being the entrepreneur, just grinding to get to where I've those stepping stones and working for those guys where they'll walk in, why is this better? And it's like, you suck.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
You're not giving us any funding. You're not giving us any support. You're not, morale's down. Mm-hmm. All you do is come in and bitch. Well, exactly. This is why. This is why your sales reps, oh yeah, no problem. They're not upselling anything.
Yeah. 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 You know, it's, I had a sergeant, one of my very first sergeants, John McDaniel, and that dude won me over to the point to where, you know, short of, you know, committing a major felony, like even like small felonies, I would have considered, you know, 100%. For this guy.
Oh,
you know,
100%.
He showed up for me in ways that was it was not typical. So,
but knowing you probably had his back and he had yours.
Oh, after this point, so yeah, we had this guy. Now, you know, I'm all law enforcement, so it's all like stateside. So we had this guy that was stalking a female, and he was getting more and more aggressive. Like, he was putting dead animals on her doorstep and like gutted fish in the mailbox, and like constantly harassing her, changing his phone number so he could continue to reach out. And it was just building on itself. And I was a rookie cop. I mean, I was within my first year.
Okay.
And this gal calls me. I just started shift, and she's like, "Hey, he's in the area, and he asked if he could take me to lunch." And so I told him that I could maybe make it work. Can you guys like be in the area and scoop him up? Because there was an active warrant for him.
No shit. Good for her for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was pretty heads up. So I haul ass over there. I have very limited like experience with any of this shit, right?
How new? I mean, I know you're in your first year, but like, how green are you?
Oh, I'm green. I'm like, you know, I mean, I've spent some time watching episodes of Cops and things, you know, but like, you know, a YouTube or to a video. The academy itself is about.
Is this ISP or you?
This is Ada County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got hired on in 2006, and then I spent a year in a jail.
How was that? I just had a correctional officer on. And we went into how corrupt the whole correctional facility is. I
think when you get onto the prison side, especially for the private prisons, I think it really goes sideways there, because it's all about money and the inmates are different, right? In the county jails, they're still going through the legal process. So
and I had actually people comment on that. They're like, "Man, I did a lot of time in county, but never experienced any of this stuff." And we were talking afterward, and he's like, "When you get to the private, federal, whatever, that's where the funding comes in.
Yeah.
That's where the corruption starts.
Yeah.
Because I was asking about the drugs.
Yeah.
It's like, how are drugs getting? He's like, CEOs bring it in.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
I was like, how do you stop? He's like, there needs to be either a law enforcement officer that's checking everybody's stuff every day, or it needs to rotate. But anyway, sorry, it's crazy.
Man, yeah. I don't know exactly what their hiring standards are, but I don't think they're as
18 years old.
Yeah.
18-year-old kids work in max facilities.
And these, I mean, many of the people in prison, like they've been in the system for a while. They know how to manipulate. They know how to.
They're con artists.
They're con artists, right? So if you got some 18-year-old kid,
zero life experience.
Yeah, but I mean, why are you putting an 18-year-old kid in max around guys that have got nothing to lose, career criminals?
Scary.
Yeah,
it is scary.
Yeah, of course. And then you do one stupid thing, and now they got you, right? Like, if they can convince you to do one thing, now they'll be like, "Hey, man."
That's what he's saying. Like bring in one phone, or you bring in one thing for them, and then we'll tell on you.
Yep. Yep.
And then they own you.
Now you'll be behind these bars with us, and
that's all it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would deal with a lot of the repeat offenders, because they get out, they do something stupid, they violate their parole or probation or whatever, and now they're right back at the system. But I mean, for the most part, I wanted to go out on patrol right out the gate, but the need was for the jail. And I'm actually looking back, I'm glad I started out there. I think a lot of guys that have no real experience. I mean, to be a cop, you can't have a criminal background, right? So my interaction with the criminal element was next to nothing.
You're thrown to the wolves.
Yeah.
Instead of being on the streets slowly, because you can go maybe a couple days without anything crazy, or maybe a couple weeks. It's depending on the department.
Yeah.
You get thrown into the county jail. I mean, you're dealing with every drunk, I mean, everybody's getting picked up. I mean, you're processing also. You're learning how they talk, their body language. You probably get to pick up on if people are lying, and it's a good way to do it. I guess.
Yeah. And when the fights did happen, or when an inmate would get out of control, you're in a confined space, and like ultimately they're not going to win, because you've got 40, 50 deputies that'll come to the fight, and because they're in the legal process, most of them are on relatively good behavior, right? Because they know if they really do something stupid, it's going to get to the judge, and the next time they got court, it's going to bite them. So, but it was a great place to cut my teeth in law enforcement, learning how to communicate with these guys and gals, and I found that as long as I wasn't disrespectful, like I didn't walk in thinking I'm the badge, you're the crook, you'll do as I say, right? I mean, you're locked in a dorm with 100, 120 inmates, and just one of you, and you're locked in there, right?
So
and
scary.
You've got pepper spray and a rape whistle, but that's it, right? And so, like, if they wanted to, they could beat your ass, they could take you hostage, and it's happened before, right? And so I just took a position of being curious about what got people into the place that they're in, and what I found was that whether they were gangbanger, they were part of a motorcycle club, a rapist, whatever, like they would open up and talk. And so I was actually able to learn quite a bit from this process, which it ended up helping me a lot when I got into patrol. And so I think all new people that don't have any real understanding about how the criminal world works, how they think, how they communicate,
should do time there.
They should do time there.
For sure.
Yeah, because you're able to get into some stuff and then have like immediate backup, right? Like you get on a patrol, you could be, by yourself for 4, 5, 6+ minutes, and if you're fighting,
that's a
long time. Yeah, so you've got to have some certain skills before you get out there, and but yeah, man. So I was 22, I think, when I got to patrol. So I'm green, limited life experience, brand new married, and I actually didn't even grow up wanting to be a cop. Like, some people are like, they want to put a uniform on. That wasn't me. If I take a step backwards, it's funny how I actually even got into it, because I was, one of my first jobs, I was a bag boy at Albertsons.
Okay.
And I was dating the bakery girl, Nicole, but that, like, the flame wasn't really there, Okay. But one of my favorite dudes that was a checker was his name, Lincoln McDonald, and I could see the twinkle in his eye when he looked over at the bakery section. And so I could tell things weren't really going anywhere with Nicole and I. So I said, "Hey, man, you want me to introduce you to my girlfriend?"
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, would you? Like, is that cool? I'm like, yeah, it's not a real thing with us. So let me do an intro. They end up getting married, and then he.
Were you invited to their wedding?
No, no,
That's
that
kind of
asshole.
that's messed up.
That is messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I think about it, I've actually never been asked that question or thought about that before. But you know what, Lincoln, you didn't invite me to your wedding, dude.
I would expect to be invited.
I hope you're divorced now. No, just kidding. Just kidding. But he became a cop. And
okay.
But what he did, so I didn't get an invitation to the wedding, but he did take me for a ride along. And I'd literally never thought about getting into law enforcement before, but he takes me out, and nothing happened. There was, a barking dog call, and some people were like illegally parked, and then we made some traffic stops. But I was thinking, man, this could be cool because you're out there on the hunt for bad people, and you're kind of like this in between of the good guys and the bad guys. And later, I found that's really the meaning behind the thin blue line.
Yep.
But I started looking into it, and then this was in Eastern Idaho where I was growing up, and Idaho State University in Pocatello had a program, a 9-month program, where you would get certified in patrol and detention.
Oh, jail. That's nice.
Yeah, and it was. So I was like, oh, let me look into this more before I go all in with the whole thing. And so I enrolled in that program. And here's a funny sub story to this whole story. Because of my upbringing, and because I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of attention elsewhere beyond me and my siblings. My little sister, Molly, for sure, like our whole world revolved around her, and then these other relationships. Dude, I had no idea that college costs money. No
really?
Clue. No, I had no clue. So I
enrolled. You just thought everybody could just go.
Well, high school didn't cost money, or at least I didn't think so. Like there was a few bucks for shop class, you had to pay for the materials and things. But
field trip here and there.
Yeah, dude. And so I find myself enrolled in this program, and like 2 weeks later, I get a call from this lady at the registrar's office. She's like, "Hey, we see you're enrolled. You're attending. How do you plan on paying for this program?" And I was all, "It costs money." And I think she was like caught off guard as I was about the question, she was about the answer, right? And so there's like silence, and like my wheels are turning, like, oh shit, how much is this? And she's thinking, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Where's this guy from?
Where's he from? And
you're from I'm from Eastern Idaho. You should know this.
Yeah, man, I'm like 20 minutes away, but that's not. Kids know college costs money, right? And like she's probably thinking this dude doesn't have a chance of passing whatever program he's in. Like if this is our starting point, this is what we're working with here.
Good luck.
Yeah, dude. So I shot down there. I filled out some like emergency student loan paperwork. It got approved, and I was on my way. But that's how ill prepared I was for life.
No kidding.
Like stepping out of the house and like entering the real world. That's where I was at. But I had work ethic and a good head on my shoulders by way of knowing what I didn't want, like having so much exposure to things that I did not want to have part of it. I operated in that way where it was like, well, I'm just going to do this because all I know is that, and that's not healthy. So went through the program. It was actually super fun because Pocatello is attached to the Fort Hall Indian Reservation.
Okay.
And those guys can drink, and they get mean, and they fight, and so there was a lot.
They get that fire
of
water
experience, man.
Yeah.
But the reservation was only a few miles away from town, like downtown Pocatello. So we would constantly get into these pursuits because it was always just a matter of if they could get back to the res, then they were home free. And but a lot of really good exposure to a lot of problems, because of it. And so I learned a lot very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And got a lot of hands-on experience.
The res life is wild.
Yeah, man.
It is.
It's sad is what it is.
It's very sad of how, well, one, obviously everything that's happened
to
the whole native culture here.
Yeah.
But two, it's like they're stuck on a res and just, here you go, here's a casino.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And I grew up in upstate New York where, we're surrounded by reses up there. And it's sad, man.
Yeah.
It's sad. And I think because they get their little casino check every month or every couple weeks, it helps those people, and it just ends up hurting them even more.
And drugs and alcohol are just
rampant.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's a sad community to see. But then you roll through some other reses that have their shit together.
You know what's wild though, dude? With all this like Black Lives Matter and like all of this like you have states like California that are doing these reparations and stuff. You never hear anything from Indians about that stuff. You're like, dude, they were like, if anybody was going to bitch and like say like we're owed something.
I've been saying this forever. Like I have a couple buddies that are natives. Actually, one of my buddies, his dad's the chief of a huge res in California. Like where's their shit? Because we stuck them on some plots and they thought was shit at the time. It ended up, some of them were beautiful areas, but we give them a couple of casinos and here you go. And that's it. Like if anybody needs to be getting taken care of, like I'm not to get into the whole slavery shit, but you bring this up. It's like there's more slaves now than there was during our slave trade. Yeah. And we won't even get into the history of that. But like how Native Americans were treated in this country is mind-boggling that nobody's bitching about it more today, especially with the whole Black Lives, reparation, we get owed money. You have every goddamn thing in the world right now. The Native community has been shit on since day one, and nobody talks about it. And not to mention the amount of women and children that are trafficked off reservations. Yeah. Nobody talks about that.
Yeah. It's wild, right? Why?
I'll get deep into
why not? Like, why don't we hear from them?
I don't know. I don't know if they just make enough off they're just comfortable enough.
No way, man. There's no way. Like we destroyed. Like giving them is destroyed.
I'm not trying to make it. Like, I'm the last person to give anything.
Right? It's interesting how it's like you'd be like, all right, bro, like that's fair. Like that's like we fuck up, but they even with like, and they're not even trying to ride the coattails. And I don't have an answer for it. I just think it's interesting. Like
for sure,
you would think that if they really wanted to, they could be like, oh yeah, and by the way, while we're having a conversation about reparations and the white man coming in and just destroying things, like throw our name in the hat, or
why don't we move us to the front of the list?
Yeah,
if we were going to give reparations and I had to pay reparations, I'd be like, okay, I understand.
Yeah,
I get it. Like I'm not gonna be like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Like I'm not. What happened in the past is the past, but they're still living like that.
Yeah,
they're still just completely been taken. Yeah, I get it. It's wild, but like even working around or living around res, like it's a different. There's people in this country that have no idea how they live on. You roll through them, and it's just. I mean, you got a brand new Chrysler sitting on blocks.
Yeah,
they get paid. They
go buy a single white trailer.
In a single white trailer, with half the windows broken out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then it's like what do you do?
Yeah, besides
work the casino or the oil fields or something. It's fucked.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean. I'd love to hear. Like if any of your listeners are
I would love
what their thoughts are on that.
I would. Jeremiah, he was an Army sapper. He's a good guy. I want him back on, and we're going to talk complete just because he does a lot with the Native women and helping them start jobs and get back up ones that have been physically or mentally abused. All that he does some really incredible things through the War Party tribe that he has going on. But I actually have talked to him. I want him to come on, and I want to talk so he has a voice. And I'd love anybody else that just so. I want why is this happening? Why aren't y'all speaking? I mean, I'm sure they are, but how does the black voice so much more powerful than the Native voice? Is my question.
Yeah, yeah.
And why is nobody focusing on the women and children that are being trafficked off to these reservations at a cyclic rate? It is mind-blowing. I mean, I don't know how much you had to deal with that, but nationwide,
not
it's
that part. I mean, I was just a rookie in the program, so I wasn't exposed to that side of it, but I actually didn't even know that was a real problem.
It's huge. Nobody does. No one does. And because once they leave the res, they're
taking them.
Their voice is gone. Who's trafficking them?
Yeah, who? Do you know? Oh,
there's so many. I ain't getting in a rabbit hole about that, but I want to know why is this not a topic?
Yeah.
Why are we worried about helping a criminal in California? He could steal up to an X amount of dollars now out of a CVS, and he's completely safe. But we're not worrying about children that are just disappearing off reservations.
Yeah, man. I think we're going to see a lot of changes here in the next 2 months. I think we're going to find that there's going to be a lot of attention on a lot of areas that have been neglected, and there's some people that need to be really worried. But for you and I, and others like us. We have a lot of reasons to be.
I just want to see everything outed. Because I'm so sick of the media. That's my biggest thing with this whole political environment was the propaganda. I mean, did you see? I just saw a study. It was like 2,700 people committed suicide the day that Trump was they declared it.
No,
there's dudes. This one guy killed his whole entire family and himself because Trump won. Tell me that is not propaganda. Tell me it's not. Look, I'm voting for the people. If Harris was for the people, or I don't give a shit. I'm fuck the left, fuck the right. I'm fuck the government as a whole. None of them are after us. I'm going to go toward my morals, values, and for the people and what makes sense. And what's been going on in the last 4 years doesn't make sense. But you look at the propaganda that we've been fed and that people are so convinced that he's a warmonger, the world's going to end, that this dude killed his whole family. That is 100% propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, like if you truly believed that Hitler reincarnated that just won the presidency, like, and you really, really believe that, you're gonna do some really extreme shit.
100%. But how did somebody that has all the access in the world at their fingertips, he's a racist. Find me a clip where he's a racist. That he's legit. Because before he was running for presidency, the rap community, Oprah, all the big giant celebrities in the black community all supported Trump. Then once the narrative and the agenda was pushed, you see, like how things are changed, and so that's like that's what's scary to me is that that's what I want to see changed. Is the media needs to be completely swiped. I think these 3-letter agencies that are against us, the FBI, all that, those all need to go away. Those all need to rehaul, and I want everything outed. The Russia collusion, Hillary, Biden, Obama. I just want to see it. Just make it public. Yeah, so then when people argue it, but still they're so far gone. If you're that far gone that you're willing to hurt yourself over a man being elected, you're not. You can read it all day, and you can't process it. Yeah, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, but it's I mean, with Trump, this being his last go at it, right? And there's no re-election he needs to worry about. Control of the House, control of the Senate. We see who he's picking for his cabinet.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and I think there's a major shakeup. I think there's probably quite a number of people who are very nervous right now in DC.
Yes,
and for good reason.
I have a feeling like it's gonna get, when people are pushed and scared. Scary things happen.
Well, Trump's been asked, are you going to release the details of the JFK assassination? Are you going to release the details of the Weinstein or
the list? Yeah, Harvey or not Weinstein.
Harvey
Epstein.
Epstein. Yeah, Epstein. Yeah, are you going to release that list and and just all like UFOs? Like he's saying he's going to. He's going to put it in front of the people. I mean, you got RFK that's in the cabinet. Of course, he's got a vested interest.
What a flex!
What happened? Yeah.
What a flex to go from Democrat to now as holding a seat in the Senate or wherever he's putting him in charge of the health.
Yeah. I mean, but like you're saying, it's about the people, right? So when you see whether it's Tulsi Gabbard who goes from the left to the right or RFK, it's just the people he surrounded himself with. I think the first time around he didn't really know.
He admitted to that.
Did he?
I saw an interview on it. He said, which was fascinating because that was one of my biggest bitches about him last time. Where Trump was a big reason why I was like, fuck the government. Because he came in, he was trolling everybody. He's got all those little clips from Hillary and cool, right? Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Change our country.
Yeah.
And then when he brought in Fauci and all these other, I saw an interview. He was like, I had no idea what I was doing. And he goes, and everything I was given the teams. The teams were appointed to me.
Right.
He goes, that was my biggest failure was one, I had no experience and I had no team that backed me. He goes, that's where I failed on the last one. He goes, and it had to happen this way. I had to learn. Now we're ready. And I was like, okay, because my biggest thing was public education. Because Michelle Obama, I believe she was the one that implemented Common Core, where these kids are 2 + 2 = 5. Cool. If you could tell me how you got it, it's correct, right? Like basic common core. That was a big reason we pulled our kids. We're done with this, and we're done. And then it never went away.
Yeah.
It's like now, leaving it up to each state. I mean, so the things he's saying now, this is what I was hoping for the first time, but like now you got one more shot, bro. Like this is it.
Yeah.
And then now he's stacking all of the House, the Senate with now this Gen or millennial, Gen Z-ish era. So now instead of bringing in all these dinosaurs, I think RFK is one of the oldest guys.
Oh yeah, I think like mid-30s is like the median age of his cabinet right now.
Which is that's the next boom.
Yeah.
And so now we have all of these. I want to see term limits. I want it all. Everything that we're bitching about. Dude,
is so, what's today, the 21st, right, of October. So we're a couple days ago, the Biden administration approved these missiles,
long-range missiles.
Yep, to get sent into Russia, and then either it was yesterday or today. So one of my favorite podcasts is obviously yours is number 1, and then Patrick Bet-David is number 2. And so I'm listening to his podcast on the way in, and Russia has now said that they are going. Putin has approved like World War III measures or something along those lines, and that if they get hit by long range missiles, they're basically green lighting the nuclear program. And they sent in some ICBMs without the warhead just to prove the point and hit Ukraine with those. And so, what is Trump actually what is he going to be stepping into when he takes the presidency?
Exactly.
And what's going to happen over the next 2 months? Because
a lot can happen.
Oh, dude, I mean, it could, like, let's just say, so here's an interesting thing that I'm like, okay, how's this going to work out? Because North Korean troops have been sent in, right? And the U.S. government continues to say, I think somewhat vaguely, that they are now legitimate targets, right? So are we going to see, here's my
conspiracy or your prediction?
I will say a prediction, more conspiracy, that Russia's like, okay, assholes, you send in another long range on our territory, like we're going full nuke on you. And so Zelensky's going to be like, all right, well, shit, North Korea is a legitimate target. Now they've sent in their things. We're going to send these long ranges into North Korea.
See, I don't think it's Zelensky. I think it's the U.S. It's Obama and everybody that's running him now, because he's our puppet. Okay, this is your next decision. This is your next play.
So do you meaning what? You think that they will send
100%
into North Korea?
This is their last Hail Mary.
I think that's where World War III would kick off.
Right before Trump steps in, and then it just fucks everything, because then he's going to be trying to put out fires the whole entire time, and that's where it's
yeah, I mean, not just fire, like an inferno, dude. I mean, it's like, we start sending in now, like, yeah, hey, North Korea, you entered the war, dude. Like, you're not just supplying weapons and equipment anymore. Like, you're putting in war fighters. So, there's consequences for that. So, I mean, but North Korea is unhinged, dude. And so, that's my concern with this whole thing. But it's like, why within a couple of months are things that we have been saying Ukraine cannot do, now all of a sudden they can do, and now Trump or Putin is like rewriting their whole approval process for sending in nukes, and the rhetoric is really ramping up.
Well, it's funny because the second that Trump won the election, Putin came out and was like, I'm ready to negotiate. I'm ready to end the war. And then a week later, we're sending long-range missiles in.
Yeah.
And then Hamas.
Tell me how that's America first with approving this and ramping up the war.
For what?
Yeah.
This is my biggest thing. I say it on almost every. Make it make sense. I say it on almost every podcast. Make it make sense. One, why are we there? Mm-hmm. Two, why are we sending in long-range missiles right before this presidency ends? Before the warmonger steps in and takes over? Make it make sense. It's their last ditch effort to try to start this agenda of just world control and having another giant war on our hands.
You get to ask that question though, and like you and your brothers and sisters like get to ask that question because you lost friends. You experienced war and all of the consequences of that.
For what though?
That's what I'm saying.
For what? Why were we in Iraq?
Right.
There's no weapons. There was never a weapon of mass destruction. That's why you get to ask that question. Never. We never. It's hard because I saw the good we did while we were there. You know, like opening up these little towns and villages that we would take over. That, you know, at the time we called them the Mujahideen, or whatever name we had for them at the time when we were taking over. So we used to escort kids to schools every day. They would literally, like a bus stop, and we would roll in as a patrol, and we'd be in the front, back, and middle, and we'd walk these kids to school. I watched engineers build playgrounds and rebuild schools and chairs and desks and everything. So like I got to see the good that happened while we were there, but why the fuck were we there?
Yeah.
Why did we lose so many men and women over there for what? Yeah. And then Afghan. Why? Why are we in these wars?
What did that do to morale and things? As that started to like really root in. I mean, we were there for 2 decades, so how, like you're over there. What was the mood of the troops when we're like?
I wasn't in Afghan as in active duty. I was a contractor in Afghan, so for us it was free reins. I mean, we got to do whatever we wanted. But I mean, in Iraq, we were told a narrative. We're there, hearts and minds. We're there to help the country and liberate these people, and then you're there, and you're like.
But I mean, we found out pretty quick that what the government
before I had joined, I remember there was never a weapon. We weren't taking oil. We're not taking. There's no weapons of mass destruction. Why are we losing men and women? It's all dollars, man.
Yeah,
that's how the rich get rich. Is during war.
Yeah, and I think that's when you talk about America first, you start talking about like what's in it, you know, for the American people. I think that's why we saw such a huge movement towards Trump, because people are fed up with being spoon-fed lies and propaganda, and like you don't have to even really be paying too close attention to be like, if you just follow the money and you look at
make it make sense.
Make
it make sense. Where's the money going? Why do we have politicians where their kids are on oil companies, the board members of oil companies in Ukraine? That we're now going to war with Russia with. Make that make sense.
Yeah, let's figure out what's going on with Burisma, right? Like I think that the Hillary Clinton bleaching of her servers and things, like all of those things, I really hope that we get exposed to the behind the scenes of those. And the presidency owes it to the American people for us to understand what's going on. And
that we're the people. They work for us. Which is where the left, I feel, has completely lost it. And so that's where I think a lot of these people, so many liberals, Democrats, I think that's where the left really screwed up, was pushing so hard. And the agenda, they were just like, I don't support this LBGT shit, the abortion shit. Just, I mean, what is a woman identify? It's too much. And it sucks because I remember I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, like you would hear somebody who was a Democrat or a Republican. It didn't matter. Nobody cared. Now there's marriages ending over. Now it's people are like, oh, you're gonna judge somebody off of what they're voting for. Now it's like you have to, because if you're still believing this shit, there's nothing that you will provide for me or my family that I want to even deal with if your mindset is still thinking like this. And like I said, I'm F every party. They're all politicians. I am anti-government, anti-politicians. But if we have to go a certain route, I'm going to go for the people. And it's like, you want higher taxes, you want to go to war, you support the slaughtering of kids up to right before they're born. Like, this, to me, and if you're like, yes, this guy's a warmonger and a racist, so I'm going to vote this way. Sorry, I can't at this point. I can't process it.
Well,
and it sucks that the line has been drawn that much in this country now. But at the same time, look at how this country voted. We're not the minority.
Oh, no.
We feel like the minority because nobody speaks the fuck up anymore. It's the little
yeah.
ones that are chirping, these little Antifa, gay pride, not even gay. Now there's a division in the gay LB whatever community. Now they're like, we're not claiming these people. They're too far. Like, you're bringing kids into this? No, we're out. So it's like these little groups are the ones they're the ones, the little chihuahua that has the loudest bark. And then you got these big giant pit bulls that are just laying there chilling. Now they're starting to wake up. Now the country's coming around. And it brought a lot of hope, man. And I didn't realize how much just hate and stress and anxiety I've had the last 4 years. It's just been built. And as soon as I saw those numbers, it was like this wave off of me. I'm like, God, I could breathe again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially being a veteran or law enforcement. I mean, you've seen how everything's evolved.
Yeah.
Crime rates have gone up.
Yeah.
Across the whole country. Everything it's just been ugh.
Yeah. Well, that, and it's also just what we've learned around the weaponization of the government around, politics and people, and just to see how much is going on behind the scenes, where you don't even have to know like all the ins and outs of it, but you're like, this just doesn't pass a sniff test. Like, why is the FBI doing this? Like, why were there 50 some odd high-ranking officials that all said that the Hunter Biden laptop was fake, was false Russian propaganda?
When there's proof of it.
And they knew it was proof of it. I mean, you're talking about the heads of CIA and FBI, and then you have,
if we can't trust them, who can we trust?
That's what I mean. It's like that, when you talk about that sigh of relief, it's like, I'm not personally being sought after by the feds. I wasn't the one that had to deal with all of those lawsuits and things that Trump did.
But it's happening.
But I mean, this is our government, and to see that, okay, if it can happen to these people,
who are we?
Dude, all day long, and we don't have the financial resources to be able to, like,
or
they
power.
could destroy anybody, right? So I think that's amongst all the other things, the inflation, the nonsense around, trans people reading to our kids in schools, like all of like the obvious nonsense. You look at the big picture side of what's happening behind the scenes, you're like, we've got to deal with it. There is a swamp that needs to be drained, and
there's no denying it.
No, dude.
And there's no denying the agendas that are being pushed.
Yeah.
I've had a physical therapist that I'd work with, and we're very opposites, but we'd have adult conversations about it, and he would just be like trying to convince me like this is a normal thing, and I'm like, bro, look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers and how.
What was he saying was normal?
Critical race theory and like teaching kids. He thought it was fine for them to be able to be taught by trans at such a young age.
Is he a parent?
No.
Of course. Okay.
Well, and that's why. Then. So that he would ask me my parent like opinion of having children, and I'm like, first off, if your children still believe in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, some fucking mythical creature, no shit, you can convince them to think that cutting their dick off, or they can be a boy and dress like this, and that's normal. No shit.
Yeah.
It's indoctrination. You can train anybody at any age.
Yeah.
If you feed them enough shit, I would come home like,
Was he curious, open to having a conversation, or had he taken a position that's
he
okay?
100% took a position, but he was open for my opinion, so it never got heated because I'd be getting worked on, so it's not like I can tell this dude to like get fucked, but it would always blow my mind when I would leave there. I'm like, God, dude, wait till you have a child, and then now your child comes home. I'm like, Dad, I would be devastated.
Yeah.
Because it's and then you look at the numbers and I'd be like, bro, look at the charts of how they skyrocket in the last 5 years. That's an agenda. If it's a natural,
like transgender,
it's being pushed. I'm like, if it's not being pushed, your charts don't just skyrocket unless there's a driven agenda behind something. And he just, I think everybody has the right. Yeah, everybody has the right to whatever, but not with children.
Yeah.
Not with kids. Leave it alone. And that's where I think everything started to get pushed too hard. And this country was like, okay, even the left, man, have kids. Just because you're a Democrat doesn't mean you 100% support that. And that's when everybody started waking up.
Well, let's see how smart the left is with really taking a look at why did they lose every swing state? Why did they lose so much ground and have so much movement of traditionally Democratic voting?
That was
minority.
wild.
Yeah, like
wild.
We'll
that swing states haven't. haven't gone red in 20 plus years or more. And
not
now
like
it's
they did this time.
Gone. Now we just need to keep the momentum, as in we, obviously the for the people side, but it's just.
We need to hold Trump accountable. We need to hold him
very much
the promises
so.
that he said that he's made to us. We need to hold him accountable to it, and time will tell. But indications look good by way of how he's setting things up. I mean, I am a huge fan of the decisions he's made around RFK and RFK's position on like attacking all of these companies that are poisoning our foods and our kids and our people.
Make it make sense of why the chemicals that are in our food are in there.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. When
you can go to any of these other countries and travel and eat everything that you want over there and you gain 0 weight, and then you come back here and you're putting on pounds within days.
Yeah.
Why do our children being fed cereal that is just nothing but chemicals and sugars every day for breakfast? And then we send these boys off to school, and then they're getting diagnosed with ADHD because you fed your kid pure shit and lock them in a room all day to sit and stare at a teacher. I couldn't sit still.
Yeah. What's the probability of our youth succeeding when all of the food is nutrient deficient? It's full of chemicals and shit that is not good for us.
Dyes.
And then you go and you put them in front of a transvestite, reading them a book about why giving blowjobs when you're 6 years old is fine, and then superintendents and boards saying that it's none of the parents' business if the kids feel like they want different pronouns. It's like of course our kids are going to grow up and be very confused, very conflicted.
Look what's going on. Look at the base of everything.
It's a war on the parents too, dude. I mean, you and I as parents, I mean, you guys have done a great job. You guys,
Thank you.
Great kids, and Chris and I, we feel very fortunate. We get compliments on our son all the time too. But it's been a campaign.
It's hard, man.
Yeah,
it's hard. You feel like everything's against you.
Well, and we have to make some extreme moves, right? Like our son hasn't gone to a public school in quite a while. He's in a private school. We pay over $1,200 a month for him to be in this private school, and we're thankful that it's an option because they're a school that's all about saying the Pledge of Allegiance and entrepreneurism, and do not subscribe whatsoever to this whole indoctrination stuff. But we're in a position where we can pay that. There's many families who they don't have that kind of extra income, and so they've got to work. They can't keep their kids at home. They can't homeschool, and it's a trap, dude. And so Linda McMahon, it looks like she'll be the head of the Department of Education. I actually had the good fortune. Our first company that we started in 2013, about 2018 or so, when she was the head of the S.W.A.T, she came through our business because we had an S.W.A.T loan for our first company we started, and so what's interesting is that it looks like she's going to get brought in for the Department of Education, but Vivek and Musk have already said that the Department of Education is going to get axed.
Done.
They're going to put it back on the states. So it's almost like she's getting brought in just to be part of the facilitation of like, downgrading it from the Fed side. But like Musk and Ramaswamy, I think they're going to come in and they're going to just absolutely clean house. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens to our debt, our national debt, and how self-sufficient we can become. I think he gave them until like 2026 or so to get shit done, and so I think we're going to see some really big shifts, and there's a lot of reasons why people that right now are afraid, they're scared, they're anticipating the worst. I think that they're going to be very surprised, and whether they're going to be willing to admit it or not. Like there's a lot of people that bought the vaccine hook, line, and sinker, right? And they made everybody else feel terrible that wasn't willing to take it. And I mean, my wife was in Costco one time, and there was a lady that walked up to her. This was like in the midst of COVID, but Costco was essential. So if you needed an 87-inch TV or a pack of 300 thongs or whatever. You could go to Costco and you get it.
Yep.
This lady comes up to her and my wife's like, just doing her thing, and this lady and like 4 masks on and gloves and the whole thing. She picks up a pair of gloves, from this dirty ass cart with her dirty ass hands, even if they're in gloves. The gloves have been touching everything, and then throws them into my wife's cart and says, "You have a responsibility to other people to protect us." So asked her to put those gloves on, and my wife just politely declined and went on her way. But there's a lot of people that today will still refuse to accept what we now know about the vaccines and what we know without question. We were spoon-fed lies around, its ability to transmit afterwards, and how if you were taking a vaccine, you were protecting other people. That's all bullshit. But some people are just still simply not willing to back down. Like they double down, triple down on their argument, and the hope is that when people start to see what this new administration does, that they're willing to say, okay, he's not a racist. You're not a racist for voting for him. I'm not a racist for voting for him. The cabinet that he put into place really did serve the country well. Hopefully they will see that and recognize that they've been voting left and not
forever.
Reaping any of the benefits of it.
Yeah.
Like, the crime keeps climbing, and people's lives just generally, those that are living in like deep blue states, are generally not getting better as time goes on.
It's like Newsom. How is
that dude's gonna be president one day?
Unless he,
mark my words.
I don't think it. I think he had a shot. Not anymore.
He's ruined. I think he'll be there.
Unless it's rigged, there's no way he'll ever. Because right now, I think that Grant Cardone or whatever is now running for him in California.
Oh, really?
I just saw that come out like yesterday, or the day before, which that'll be interesting. I'm not a huge fan of him.
Yeah, same.
But shit, what was I saying? Fuck, I lost my train of thought on that one. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, Newsom. Like, people keep voting for him. You just walk. I just watched a video of these 3 women. They literally filled laundry hampers full of stuff in like a CVS and just walk out the front door, and they couldn't do anything about it. And people are bitching about it. It's like, you vote for this. You allow this to There's maps of shit in San Francisco, and it marks the whole entire city, just brown spots all over it. You voted for this. My buddy was telling me that where he lives in Cali, that the community came together and cleaned up the homeless on the streets, and then they put these big planters in, but the community paid for them. Put these big pots, like giant pots in, and they put all these flowers and trees and all that stuff. The state came in and ripped it all out because they needed the room for the homeless to be able to live on the sidewalks. And they're bitching about it. I'm like, how do you bitch about it? You vote for this. I know not the majority, but in the cities run. It's like New York, man.
Yeah.
It's like Oregon.
Wow.
You drive around in Oregon, like when I'm guiding over there, everywhere there's Trump flags in every yard. But you look at Portland owns it. New York City owns New York. San Francisco, San Diego, LA, so I get it. It's not everybody, but time to start waking up.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah. I think we woke up.
I think it is.
I think the sleeping bear
I was with you with Newsom. I felt that if Kamala came in, he was going to be brought in after her. But I think now there's no going back unless Trump really fucks the pooch on this next election. But even still, with the House and the Senate, like the moves and hopefully the things that they're able to change, that everybody goes, okay, life is good. My taxes are down. Businesses are booming. The economy's thriving. Fuel prices are down. Why would you want to change that? I don't care who steps in ahead of next in charge of on the left. Good luck. Good luck. Because everybody's seen Newsom, what a weasel he is in the whole country. He's only got some of California's support. He's got 3 cities that support him. Yeah. Good luck. Unless there is a major drive and we lose marketing, we lose the media, so all the platforms go back to just the same shit they did with Trump every time. But if they show up and things change, how the only person out of this whole thing I don't like is Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz.
Not a fan of him.
Yeah.
I don't like him. I never have.
Yeah.
I don't like his eyebrows.
Oh.
He's just they're fucking.
Yeah.
Looks like he's got Botox and had like a facelift.
Yeah.
And he trolls too much. I'm done with the trolling shit. It was cool the first election, and you know the little one-liners that made all the memes and make Trump cool. I'm done with it. I want everybody to shut the fuck up and change this country and get it back on track.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
I don't care about the memes and the clips and for social. Done. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Get us back on track.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Get us out of the wars. Get us out of the nonsense.
Close the borders.
Close the borders up.
Focus on us as Americans.
Yeah.
Get our kids, you know, we don't have to worry about it. Our kids will never go back to public school. But it's sad, man. It's so, like you said, like you're fortunate enough to have your kid in public school. There's kids that have 2, 3, 4 kids. They can't. There's no way. And it's even hard for them to homeschool. And I look at some of my buddies and it's sad. I feel bad for people that are forced to send their kids to public school every day because do you trust the government? Oh, absolutely not. You trust them with your children?
Yeah.
Even if it's a great teacher. My kids had, when they were in, some of the greatest teachers they had. I mean, they would call them Nick. I mean, they're teachers spoiled, like, because, you know, kids are polite and you just don't be a little asshole and people like you know?
Yeah.
And so even when they were in school, they had incredible teachers, especially here. And so, but I'll never go back.
Yeah.
It's not even the teachers, it's the environment.
Yeah.
And then with her, she has a really good youth group that she goes to. And so all of her friends are from all over the valley. So she gets invited to all the dances and football games. So she gets to experience all the high schools, not just one, you know, where that kid's, she'll come home. I'm good. No, not for me. Because she sees how cannibalistic these kids are, the depression that just rapes these kids. I mean, just runs wild through them. The drama, the bullying. No. No. And
that's the responsibility we have as dads too, I believe. Like, you know, for you raising girls, like it's essential that you're showing them, like, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to, like, how does a man treat a woman? What does a healthy relationship look like?
Dating your daughter, I think, is a huge one. And I tell people that, and they always look at me weird.
Yeah.
Like, you don't date your daughter? They're like, what do you mean?
Oh, you dated her at the mastermind, it sounds like.
Yeah, right? That's my wife.
You guys went a little bit too far. You
like
did just date her, you married her.
Yeah, right? Taking your daughter out
and
showing her, going to dinner and just talking, letting them, I don't want to hear fucking boy shit. Like, it's just, but I have to. I want to hear, I don't want to, but you have to, right? And I'm at the point now where I know where she is mentally because where she's dealt with boys and now she's smart enough to realize, like, because I've ingrained in her one of the biggest lessons is make them work for it. If you are worth it and you know your values and your morals, which she does, we're good, right? And that's always going to be learning. But this is where I feel a lot of fathers really lose track with their daughters. They're more worried, and I was at first. My role as a father, especially a girl dad, my position is their personal security guard till the day I take my last fucking breath. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't care if they're married. They call me on the phone. I'm whooping ass. I don't care. That is my job. But as I've evolved and matured and grown, it's not just protecting and shielding boys. It's, hey, let's learn ourselves. Let's learn our value and who you are. And if you truly know yourself, these little shits, make them work for it because they don't. They don't. These kids come in, what's your snap? Yo, what's up? They're just, I don't have to teach them that these kids are all little fucks. She just is now realizing this and seeing this because these kids don't want to put in the time. It's because these girls that are missing their fathers, missing that father influence, these boys come along and it's instant. They're sucked right into it. I'm in love. Oh my God, he's the greatest thing ever. And then here's my daughter like, you've known this kid 3 days. You talk on Snapchat. You go out in public and you guys can't even have a conversation with each other. But then you go home and you can talk on Snapchat till 3 a.m. And she's like, Dad, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, because if you're worth it and you know your value, make this kid work for it. He puts in the time, comes and meets the family. And that's one of our rules. If you want to date, your boyfriend, future boyfriend, has to date me. I don't want this kid sitting at my dinner table flipping his hair. Yeah, bet, fire, yeah. No. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah.
She could bring over 100 boys. Cool. I'm not dealing with it. You're going to sit in my home and come to my home. You're going to have a conversation with me. You're going to look me in my eyes. I want to get to know you. If you're going to be spending time with my daughter, that means you're spending time with us. We're a tight family. Mm-hmm. So if you're in my daughter's life, you're in my life. Mm-hmm. And if the little one doesn't like you, good fucking luck, buddy. Good luck. That's the gatekeeper. It ain't me or mom. It's little sis. Little sis ain't checking off on you. Have a nice life. It was good to meet you, bud.
Yeah.
See you later. And that's how it is. And so like that's where I think a lot of fathers just like, oh, the boys, or they just don't care. I see these dads, their daughters are out at 3 a.m. at parties, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. You're allowing your daughter to dress the way she is and be out at 3 a.m. at a party? I don't know what happened. I don't know what went wrong. You were what went wrong because you weren't in your daughter's life. You thought you were the cool dad. You weren't the father. You were just being a cool dad. Mm-hmm. That's where these dudes fuck up.
Yeah.
And I see it every day. And I'm like, I'm sorry, kid. This is who I am, and this is who we are. I'm not changing. I'm not bending the knee for anything. She called me, Dad, we're all going to this place. Where are you? Cool. I track everything. I see everything. Dad, can I get an extra hour? Yeah, go ahead. She's never given me a reason to say no. There's times, school nights and shit, and I don't want to be able to get your ass home. Mom and I are ready for bed. Go home. She's never given me a reason to not, right? But until that time comes, cool. Hey, we're all going after youth group. We're all going to go to In-N-Out and hang out for a while. Go, have fun. Need money? Cool, here you go. I don't question anything because I know she knows her values. And these boys can spit all the game in the world. Oh, Dad, I met this new boy. He's really cute. I'm like, cool. Come talk to me in 2 weeks. What happened? Ugh. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You didn't have to kiss. You didn't even hold hands. You didn't give yourself up to these kids like all these girls are doing at this age. Make him work. Mm-hmm. If you're worth it, that little motherfucker will put in the work to get to know you and us as a family. That's the best way to wean these kids out. Mm-hmm. Make them work for it. I don't have to do anything. I'm on autopilot now. Don't get me wrong. My guard's not down.
Sure, yeah.
I'm watching every one of these kids, but now she's on she's just cruises. All these little athletes. I'm like, oh, fuck the football player. All right, I don't have to worry about this kid. I'm good. A week later, I'm good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she tells me the other day, this kid, I'm sitting there and the kid put his hand on my leg. I'm like, what'd you do? She went, whack, and whacked his hand off. Okay, cool. You can handle yourself.
You two ought to do a podcast.
We're going to.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the perspective from your standpoint on what you feel was done to get you to that point to where you operate in the world that you do. Because that's a real blessing for a parent, right? When you have that kind of trust in your kids that way.
Biggest blessing.
Yeah.
Britt and I talk about it constantly, how blessed we are. We can leave money on the table.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about our kids.
Yeah, there's a lot of parents. I mean, you're even talking about meeting kids where they are not meeting the standard. You're meeting, these boys. And, if I were you, I'd be like, I'd walk around with that spear. I mean, having a beautiful daughter and the 16-year-old, knowing how 16-year-old boys think. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, we know what we were thinking when we were that age.
But I've taught her how boys think. And honestly, what's helped a lot is her being raised in the outdoors. So I'm like, hey, because she's like, they just want to be friends. And I'm like, Christy, honey, rut is full on. That 14, 15, you remember when we're out and we're chasing bulls and the rut just switches overnight and they're all full lip curled? From now until you're in your 30s, they're full rut. They only care about one thing. And then she'll see it. They're like, oh, my God, he's so nice. And then they fuck up. Because these kids, these boys aren't raised correctly. The biggest problem are the fathers that aren't raising their sons actually how to treat a woman because they don't have to now. Now it's, yo, what's your snap? She gets asked constantly. I told her that was one of the biggest red flags. If a boy asks you for your snap before your name or your phone number or even gets to know you, red flag. Which she's not allowed to have Snapchat. That's 100% absolutely no in our home. That's one thing I will never give into is Snapchat. That is the platform built by the devil himself. So these boys, yo, what's your snap? She's like, no, thanks. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's like that? And then she's not like, you're not going to get to know me? She stood up, and this kid that was all into her, he was blown away because they all met as a group, and she stood up and shook this kid's hand. And he was like, obsessed over her. He's like, I've never had a girl look and shake my hand before. He's like, who are you? It's like,
so what are your thoughts on the fact that you've raised such a strong, independent daughter, and very strong-willed, very clear-eyed, and that what's the probability that having an alpha type head of household, like I'm the leader of the house, is going to be a good potential fit for her, being that she's also, because then because you have to have somebody to wear the pants, right, or be like. We've
had this conversation, and I've kind of joked in a way, like, you guys are going to probably marry not a beta dude, but especially she's very even keeled, the little one. I'm a Marshall. I'm not changing my last name. She's the prideful one, where we're like, don't change your last name. I'm like, yeah, fuck that. You're a Marshall. You don't have to change your name for shit, you know? Yeah,
that way your bloodline lives on.
It's just going to come down to who treats them the best. Yeah. And I feel like that's going to be for her to be able, I don't care who she brings home. As long as he respects her and respects her values and us as a family and our rules, I don't care.
So if he was the one that was like taking the orders, and
honestly, personally as a father,
you're fine with that. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm cool
now at this point. But like, I don't know, because me is who I am. I want, as long as he can protect her, he's not like some little weakling. But I don't, as with her, like when I hug my daughter, I hug them. Yeah. I hold my daughters, and so she'll like, Dad, his hands were little and he could barely hug. It's like she said it. She's like, Dad, when they like somebody will hug me, she's like, it's gross. She's like, they don't. She's like, I'm so used to hugging a man. She's like, that's what I'm attracted. Not me, but like that's what I'm attracted to, is a physically like a man. And so somebody that isn't something, I'm like, well, they're also 16-year-old kids. Like they still got some growing to do. I'm like, so listen, just don't even worry about dating until you're like 25
or later,
or even past or past that. But yeah, no, it's an interesting time. But like the one biggest thing that I love is like, oh, good luck, man. You got beautiful daughters. Good luck. I've invested in my daughters. My wife is invested in our daughters on everything. Our kids don't come home. She does not come home and just go straight to her room and we don't see her. She comes in and tells us about everything. The drama, the boys, the girls, everything that's happening. We know everything that's going on in our kids' life. There's things as me as a dad where I've told the wife, hey, when girl stuff, developing, teenage shit, I'm good. That's women shit. I don't need to be filled in all that. Everything else, protection, knowledge-wise, I need to know what's going on, the trends, the fads. I want to know it all, because you need to know where your kids are. But like us being so invested in our children, which is so hard, but having them home for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I know everything. And it's I think that has helped so much to be able to know who your kids really are. They're not in school all day. They're not falling into the fads and the trends because they're getting bullied because they don't have the new stuff. Like, we don't worry about that shit.
So what's your advice to parents when they don't have the luxury of having like homeschool or maybe even like, you know, the single families, but what's your advice on how, for people who have kids where they're like, man, my son would never have a shot at a girl like that because of the way Bam's describing this, like he's describing my son, that, you know, I would like to parent them different.
Respect and confidence. Respect and confidence. None of them have it anymore. Zero respect on how they talk and treat these girls. And the problem is, a lot of these girls come from broken homes. They don't have the father figure. So these boys don't have to work. It's so easy. These girls just head over heels within a day of Snapchatting a kid. And so it's like, if you teach your son, now I have a buddy that he pulled his kid out of school. His kid doesn't go to any school. He's just life. He works for the family business. And that is one of the most respectful, polite men I've ever met. And so these dads, it's where they're missing the point. It's like, yeah, it's my son. He drives this. He can pull all the ass he wants. Well, when your son runs through all of these worthless ass kids and then meets somebody that actually respects and values themselves, good luck. No, you're not going to have a chance. But these kids that come in and show respect, take the time to date into court. Everything is just 0 to 100. There's no in between. These kids aren't getting to know anything. Slow down, show respect, get to know the girl that you plan on dating, for us, you're going to have to get to know us as a family because this is who we are. We do everything together. We travel together. Sports are together. We are nonstop together. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of those dads. We are not that family where I'm like, God, I need to break from my kids. I go on a trip and I cut it short. I'm like, I'm ready to get home. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be here. Why am I here instead of with my kids? I'm one of those people. So if you're going to be in that environment, you're going to have the respect. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to. And just the confidence. She meets these kids all the time. She's like, God, Dad, like, you wouldn't even look me in my eyes.
How did you develop that? What would you say were like the key approaches for building confidence and
honestly
respect?
Martial arts. She used to be this little slouched over little mousy creature of a child, and it's it wasn't the martial art aspect that created this. We were in a horrible gym where the staff hated, the instructors hated her because she became better than them. Yes. Oh, wow. And she was bullied. She was harassed in there. She was treated like shit. She was singled out. And she learned on her own because she was excelling in it and becoming state champions and becoming a national champion to eventually become holding 3 world titles and fought through it all. And then that's where her confidence, she really just bloomed and became this woman. And it was awesome to be able to be there with her. This podcast room was our dojo. I created 3 world champions in this room where we're sitting. None of this was here. So me instilling in her and talking to her, and her mom just constantly on it, doesn't let anything slip by it. And so being able to have that line of communication too has been probably the biggest key, because instead of her going in her room and, oh, what was me? No, get your ass out here. What's wrong? Mm-hmm. Tell us what's happening. How do we get through this? And walking your kids through those problems. I think a lot of parents now with technology, video games, iPads, cell phones, that's what's raising these kids. Instead of that kid coming home and be like, God, Dad, like these kids today. Well, okay, let's figure out how we get through this. Maybe she'd come back from the gym. God, this girl, kick her in her fucking face next time and see what she does. Put her on her ass. Guess what she does? Steps up and just lays this kid out. Then the hate was even worse. Then now the girl couldn't pick on her. Now she was getting these older boys that are instructors, paid staff at our gym, I'm paying for my child to be there to pick on my kid. And I look at her, I'm like, fucking fight him. Fight him. Mm-hmm. Fight him. This is the world, kiddo.
Fight him? Yeah, she fought him. Look at her. And then she won. I like that.
Yeah, we'd show up at tournaments, and there wouldn't be any girls that would show up at a tournament. We'd drive to Colorado. There would only be boys in her age group. You want to go home? No? Well, get the fuck in the ring. And she beat all the boys. Confidence. Coming home with medals every time. That was the worst experience for us, but it was the greatest thing that ever happened to her. This is the worst gym. The local gym here, Taekwondo gym. Absolute garbage. We ended up leaving through the drama and the bullying and the harassing. It was horrible. But for her, I mean, we are sitting back like, God, this is great.
Yeah.
Because she's not dealing with that at school. She doesn't have to deal with the catty bullshit from these kids at school. But she's going to a gym where she has these goals that she wants to be a world champion, and she's got instructors that are in her way that are harassing and bullying her and trying to do everything they can to hurt her. And she's coming out every time. And then you just started to see her bloom and blossom and become this young woman. Then she steps on stage and takes 3 world titles. And I'm like, world's yours, kid. It's lonely at the top. Let's go. You know?
That's awesome, man.
It's not easy, you know? But, I mean, for the parents that can't private school or can't homeschool, talk to your kids. The open line of communication is the number one key to everything. Because you don't have that ability. But if your kid comes home, it's like, hey, what's going on? Take them out, go to lunch, take your daughters out to dinner one night and just have them talk. That's it. It's that line of communication. We can talk about anything. Anything.
Is that how you grew up?
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty open. We were really good kids. Like my parents still together. My dad worked his ass off. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but like, we always just talked. We always, we were always around. My mom would never go to bed. My brother and I we'd be out fishing until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning in the spring. We had these little bullhead that the restaurants would buy, and they'd always call our house and be like, hey, we need fish. And so my brother and I were literally providing these fish in the springtime to these restaurants. So my mom would drop us off, and she would be on that couch, and I'd call, "Hey, can you come pick us up?" And it'd be 3, 4. It'd be sometimes sun would be coming up until we felt our limit, or filled buckets, or ran out of bait. We'd be out there. So my mom was always there, and that's the same thing with our kids. Our kids will never come home, and will not be waiting for them. It's just, you just got to keep them in line.
Yeah.
We give them all the freedom in the world, but that's same with me. My dad, only rule: you disgrace the family name, you'll never see daylight again. Roger that. That's where I learned to run my ass off, hide from cops. Getting caught was not an option growing up.
Did any of your siblings break that rule?
No. My brother ratted on me one time. We TP'd our teacher's house, and she knew it was us because we were absolutely hated by her. And my brother confessed, and I didn't. And so my dad made him go and clean up everything on his own.
And your dad knew you were part of it?
I told him.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care. Number one rule: don't ever rat your brother out. He's all you ever have. Wow. All you will ever have. And so that was his punishment for ratting me out. He had to go do it all himself.
Did he take the right lessons away from it?
Oh, to the grave on everything else.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So my parents were cool. As long as we weren't vandalizing shit, we could do whatever we want. You know, we were mischief kids, and we had so much fun growing up. But yeah, so like with them, you know, every time she's out, like, it just depends on the time, what's going on. If there's the weather, you know, there's times where I'm like, hey, I want you home early. She doesn't fight it. All right, Dad. But there's other times like, Dad, please. Can I have one more hour? Yeah, absolutely. Why not? You haven't given me a reason to say no. So, because we have that relationship. So, kids are wild.
Yeah, man.
How about you?
Yeah.
You have a son. How's that?
Dude, he's amazing. You know, I resonate so much with everything that you're saying.
Yep.
You know, 15 years old, and he's a good kid, man. Your little sister would like him. She would approve.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
How old is he?
He's 15 and a half. Yeah. And he's, you know, when you talk about confident and respectful, like that is...
It's going to get him so far, man, because none of these kids do. Or the confident ones are too confident, and they're just arrogant and cocky.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, for sure there's a balance there, but he's just a genuinely good, sweet kid. And I think that the way he's been raised, he's been exposed to a lot. He's an only child, so he's only been around adults. He's actually much more comfortable around adults than he is kids, and drama and the typical teenage, you know, just thought processes and issues just drive him crazy.
Yep.
Like, you know, and so he doesn't want to go to any of the school dances. He doesn't want to do any of the school related stuff because he just hates the immaturity. But yeah, he's, you know, him and I, we started doing jiu-jitsu together about 7 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah, he got put in a headlock at church, and, you know, a little kid, like, boys just being boys, but he didn't know what to do about it. He was really upset. So we went to a local jiu-jitsu gym, a guy I knew that owned it, and we signed up right there. And it started out as like a father-son thing. And but my wife would go and watch, and she watched us. There was no real female population to it. There was only like a few females that trained there. So she watched for a few years, but then in like 2020, she jumped in, and she's been training ever since. And so we do that as a family, and I think that he's been able to learn a lot through that journey. Like, you know, like you're saying, although we've had some really good instructors, people that have really poured in, and so he's a good kid, dude. He's what we need more of in this world. I don't have to worry about him at all.
It's wild that when you know, I'm sure you have friends and stuff that have kids that aren't on the same path, and you're just like, God, I couldn't imagine. It's so nice having autopilot kids that are, and at the same time, it's like when you said that he's more comfortable with adults. I get asked that too, like, well, how does she socialize? I don't want my 16-year-old daughter hanging out with 40 other 16-year-old kids. And find me another environment in the world where, as an adult, you're hanging out with 40-year-old men. And that's it. Like, I don't want her doing that. I want her going to networking classes. I want her going to business meetings where she's sitting and listening to us talk to CEOs of these companies. It's like, that's because that's where I want her mindset.
Yeah.
And even the little one, she comes along too. She's sitting right next to her.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset I want. I don't want her thinking like a teenager. And people are like, well, you're taking that away from her. She has all the experience. She gets asked to every fucking dance in the valley because these kids, they seek her out and they're finding her. And so now it's like, that's like the prize is who's Christy? Who's going to ask? So she gets all that experience, but then she comes home, she's like, I'm good. Like, she had the drama over this girl liked the boy and the boy liked her and she didn't even like the boy. And then these girls are like mad at her and she's like, honey. And she confronted, you got a problem, let's talk about it. Confronts these kids on it. And she's like, Dad, they're just too immature. I don't know, like, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah. That's always an awkward thing when another parent gives you such compliments and accolades for your child, and because they're like, their kid's not like that. And you're like, I'm like, I don't know how to respond. I'm like, thank you, you know. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it is nice. Like, yeah,
it's really nice. You know how much goddamn work I've put into getting to this point.
Yeah, other parents like, I wish my kid was like that. I'm like,
it's like they can be. They can be. You just don't put the time in. That's all it comes down to is time and communication.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, you know, whatever you dedicate that time and effort to is gonna grow, right? So, I mean, for good or bad.
Yep.
And there's nothing more worthwhile than our own offspring.
I want them to leave one day, which I hope they never do. I'm at that point. Like, if you guys can live here as long as you want, I just want them to leave one day, and I can kind of be rest assured, like, okay, she knows how to talk, she knows how to work, she knows how to communicate, she knows how to network, she has the ability to start another company or build off of whatever she's doing now. Okay. Go. Like, I feel you have the tools to be able to get started in life instead of going to college and not even knowing you got to pay for it. Like, that's the type of shit, you know, you deal with these kids and it's, they don't, just not learning anything. Yeah. And it's just, I want her to have the upper hand. And I feel with this generation she's at, and I'm sure every generation has said this before us, but I want her to just go in and just dominate everything. And what she's already doing. Her little sister's already doing it. I mean, she's coming around the corner on her scooter, little electric scooter, and she's got bags of leaves because she just finished up at a house raking leaves all day while her friends are at school learning who knows what. Yeah. You know? It's like, that's where I want their mindset. Like, cool, money's not everything for sure. That's another valuable lesson. Money isn't everything, but hey, if you learn how to make it, it's nice. It feels good. You want to go buy some stupid ass toy? You want to waste your money? Go ahead. And they have the ability to do that.
I think it's safe to say he's proud of you.
I am very proud of her.
I think it's safe to say.
I'm a proud dad.
Yeah.
I'll get on tangents. People ask me, like, what about your kid? 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, shit. What about yours? Oh, yeah, he's fucking kid. You know, and I'm like, oh, my bad. Like, you know. But, yeah, it's a lot of work, man. It's something to be, I would take, you know. And so this is actually a question for you that I have for you. I was just recently at this networking thing, and these guys stood on stage, and they just bragged. They said that the whole point of it was for them to not brag about their accomplishments, but all they did was brag, from my point of view. It was very, turned me off big time. Talking about, it was 1 year I spent $2.5 million on cars, and I was signing deals with Michael Jordan and Uber and blah, 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 blah. These guys just on and on and on about themselves. And then afterward, but then they're talking about their whole life. Each one of them talked forever. Afterward, they're in the crowd, and I walked up to each one of them, and I was like, how did you build what you built and still had a relationship with your children? And I've yet to get an answer.
Because they didn't have a relationship with their kids?
None of them. They're like, well, one guy was like, oh, you got my number, call me. So my question to you is, in your position, and you and your wife, I mean, you guys, I feel like we're a lot alike as far as being involved in everything. How do you find that time? I guess it's kind of a weird question to ask because you see all these influencers and you see all the social and all these guys are grinding and crushing it and they're giving these speeches and all that stuff. But like, how do you be able to build the success to have the financial freedom and the wealth, but also at the same time be able to raise children how we're able to do it? Is it even possible?
Oh, it's 100% possible. Wealth is I guess it just depends on how you define wealth, right? Like, for me, I've never thought wealth looked like having, a bunch of commas in the bank and a wallet full of cash, but walking into a house where you're a stranger to your kids, right? Or to your wife. And so, when it comes to real wealth, it's having abundance in all of the different areas. And so, we've been able to achieve, some really cool things in our life by just being intentional. And there was a point where, in 2015, for the first time, my wife and I were talking about separation and divorce, because we had a couple of years of business ownership. We started our business in 2013.
It's not easy.
No, dude. And it was nothing like what I thought it was. I promised her a dream, and I was serving up an absolute nightmare. And it was, it was all tied to, my business acumen was in the toilet. I just didn't know anything about business. I was a SWAT guy, and opened up a business that was for reality-based training. And so I made the mistake in thinking that hard work in and of itself would pay off, and I think it was somewhat of a blessing in disguise to have our son be part of the entire equation, because he grew up starting. He was, let's see, he was like 4 when we started that business. And so, he was around the whole thing. And when things started to go sideways, it was because we ran out of working capital. There was no more money to rob Peter to pay Paul with. Yep. And, I was getting eviction notices for the building. We had a couple of houses. We had to, the first house we sold, we were living in, it was a beautiful custom home, had to cash that out to get paid up on bills, but I still didn't know how to be a good business owner. And so that cash went away. We moved into our rental house that we had bought that house brand new. It had been a rental for several years. It was cash flowing, and but needed a place to go. So we moved in it, only to find ourselves in the same position as we were before. So had to sell that house, liquidate it. And then our son came to me one day and he was like, "Dad, I don't feel like I have a home anymore." We lived in a townhouse. It was a new, nice townhouse, but it was a town, like they're the ones behind the village.
Oh, so yeah.
Right by that park. So these long lanes of that's where we ended up being. And I was like, man, that's where I was really feeling like a failure as a husband, as a father. For the first time, I'm thinking about what joint custody might look like, and on the brink of divorce. Yeah, we were down there, and I had nobody else to blame but myself. I had ran from the responsibility for as long as I could, and that, when you get to that point, you really start to think about what's important. If you're thinking about divorce, joint custody, not being able to go home and be able to hug your child, or like you said on the top of this podcast, having a circumstance that I created where my son doesn't have a permanent bed to rest his head on, that's a heavy burden, Sure. And the easy route would have been to just pull the ripcord, but easy by way of just being able to walk away from that scenario, but harder in all the other ways, right? Yeah. So when you get to that point and you really start to evaluate what is this all for? What are we doing? You get more focused on the important shit, and family is the first and foremost Health. Of it, right? You can take everything else away. You can take everything. You can empty the accounts. You can take my right arm, left arm. You can whatever, but don't take my family away, For sure. Right? And so because of that point, and that's where I think there's so many blessings that can come from the hardships, right? And like where real adversity can make us way stronger,
That's where you
way
learn.
more. Yeah, dude. But you've got to commit to the outcome at the same time. Like you can't, like if I had taken the easy path of saying, all right, let's get the divorce, right? I'll go back on the commitment that I made when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
We'll just do what so many other families are doing and just raise a son in a binuclear family structure. If I had gone down that path, I don't know how my son would be today. I don't know if I would be saying the same things about him, because he would be justified in having resentment towards me, right, for creating that scenario and then not fighting for my family. So, to your question around can you have it all the ways, you can, right? But when it comes to business, the cool thing about entrepreneurship is that you can truly evaporate the ceiling above you and your family around what's possible, right? How much you can make, the impact you can have, the legacy you can build, like where you can do things, when you can do things, all of it just evaporates when you become an entrepreneur. But that's only if it's done right. So part of doing it right means that, you build something that's capable of becoming something big, and that you have the leadership abilities to formulate a team that can start doing the heavy lifting for you, to where now you can remove yourself and become more obsolete from the business.
So firing yourself.
Essentially, yeah. Like, like firing yourself to the degree to where you can be anywhere, do anything, and the business isn't impacted as a result. And that's very much an art and a science. It does not happen over time or overnight. It happens over time. And if your why is big enough and your commitment to meeting the objective is solid enough, and you're not willing to, like, you're willing to burn the boats, like failure is not an option. Like you're just all in, and you're working towards building something that you can be obsolete from, but still get to reap the benefits. That's ultimately how you find yourself being able to have the best of all the different worlds.
I like how you said wealth. I feel, when you're saying wealth is in the eye of the beholder, pretty much, which is a huge thing that's been a hard thing for me over the years to be able to accept until this last year or two with the wife constantly, because I'm sure you in your network, very, very wealthy people that are just fuck you money. Some of those people are the most miserable people I've ever met in my life.
Lonely, unhappy. Yeah.
No
they got
connection.
all of them. They got money, but they're
everything.
broke.
But then I'll just use myself for example. We're not rich, but I consider myself very wealthy. Is in the fact I'm here with my kids all day. My daughter's running a podcast. My wife and youngest are downstairs making bread. We work together. We travel together. We do everything together. Like, to me, that's wealth. It's just, I guess, our biggest thing. Like, we're right now, we are lighting all the ships on fire. We are burning the ships right now. And so it's scary. We haven't done this in a long time. So we're getting rid of a company right now that's going to clear up a lot for us to be able to focus 100% on us. And so it's a scary process that we haven't stepped out of that comfort zone in a long time. But realizing my kids are healthy, we have a roof over our head, our bills are paid. That's wealth to me. But now it's okay. Now that we're functioning and we got all the wheels are greased, now this is the growth stage for us. And it's a really scary thing. And it's scary because you find, not me, I've never been one of these people that compare like the social media life, because I buried in it and I know how disgusting and fake and just a ratchet ass world that is to watch. But you see everybody with the toys and the homes and the vacations. And I know so many of those guys that live that social media life. And then when you actually sit down there, you're like, fuck that. You can have that image. And so I guess it's interesting. Yeah. And that's where I feel like me stepping out of that comfort zone and coming to your what the hell do you how do you label
mastermind.
It? I want to call it mastermind, but I wasn't sure. It's a lab. That's I thought there was another term.
No,
for
the
it.
lab. Yeah, that's in a bit, but.
Was like a big thing for me because I've always just networked through my connections and going somewhere and doing my networking. And then when you invited me and I was like, kid, you're coming along with me.
Yeah.
Like and we talked about it. I was like, yo, if this is fucking lame, we're out. Like straight up. I was like, if I got to like do some dumb shit, like we're out. And I even told Zach, I was like, hey dude, like this guy's going to be involved. We're going to use him to help find and grow here in the Northwest. I was like, so I want to see how he is. But I was like, if this shit's, this some cheese dick, like, hey, I'm powerful, I am strong. Yeah. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
That just, it's so, but how it was run, man, the connections that it opened up, for her. And that was just like a little free one. Hey, every third week, let's go. And so that was huge. And that was a big step for me to go to something like that because I am not one of those people. And I was like, okay, we need to go to every one of these now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, so
if you want to talk about what it is, for anybody listening, if you want to break down the kind of the process with it, because I've seen these, and this isn't any offense to him if you're friends with him, but like the Sean Whalens, those dudes are like, those are the guys that turn me off from doing any of these types of things. Because I see nothing against him, not bashing him. He follows me on Instagram. I've followed his journey over the years, but like when you hear guys like him talking, I feel it's all bullshit. And then he's giving marital advice, and now they're getting divorced, and now they're back together. It's like, I would rather see a guy like him talk about all his failures instead of just the bullshit, gimme, social media marketing, be an entrepreneur bullshit is how I feel most of those people are. And this isn't a dig. If he's sitting right here, I'd fucking tell him the same thing. Like, that's just who I am.
Yeah.
So that's where I have that hard time all these years. Like, God, do I really have to go to these things in order to like be successful? And then we went to it. And I was like, fuck, God damn, that opened up some doors. Just the first little meeting, and you calling me out and putting me on the damn hot seat. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And how am I gonna say no? I got my daughter sitting next to me. Like, I can't look like a bitch.
Yeah.
And those are the types of things that I feel I have to do as a man. Like, bam, I want to come up here. I'm like, I don't. I don't want to talk to any of these people. I don't even want to be here. But I'm here. But that totally got me out of my comfort zone, and it was awesome, man. It was for her to be able to see that, me to be able to watch her. I mean, she ended up connecting with a group of women there, and had a meeting with them afterward to help with their podcast. So please give me a little rundown on that. I don't know how much time you got, but for anybody listening, I mean, it was beneficial for me, and anybody that's been following me for a while, they know I'm no bullshit guy. I would call, I'm a spade, black and white. That's it. Yeah. And so it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, man, that's awesome feedback, and I really appreciate it. It's at the heart of it all is that we have some shit figured out. Like, we're proficient in some things, but when it comes to really building something amazing, there are so many more areas that we're ignorant in that we need to know, we need to understand, we need to have clarity on, but it's just outside of our zone of genius. And I learned this through mentorship and coaching years ago, right? That it's like, you got to put down the mask, you've got to put down the armor, you just got to be authentic and real, and recognize that nobody's got all of their shit together, nobody's got everything figured out. But if you surround yourself around the right people, then whatever is on your mind, whatever is a challenge to you, if it's keeping you up at night, you feel like it should be better, it could be better, you don't know how to make it better though. At that exact same moment, there are people out there who do have the answers because they've been there before. They have wisdom that we don't. And so you just get into the right room with them where the intention is set correctly. Then we can leverage each other's wisdom and do it in a way to where everybody benefits as a result. And that's really the root of the mastermind, is providing that opportunity and welcoming people in who are open to growth, right? And are willing to check their ego and pride at the door and give it a shot, just like you did, and say, like, I'm open to what this could be, but I'm going to judge it based on the experience versus judging it beforehand.
It is definitely one of those. That is one of those things where you can leave there and be like, "That was the dumbest thing I've ever did," or you could be like, "Holy shit! I just networked this guy that can help me ship my product and save me millions of dollars a year." That is 100% one of those events that you get what you put into it, and that's where when you say check the ego, I was in the truck like, "All right." For Mac, like, hey, this is what Mac needs done. We need to grow this company in the Northwest. Like, whatever, dude. We're ride or, that's my ride or die.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't have an option.
Yeah.
And so that's what it came down to. And when we sat in the truck, I was like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like that was nothing how I expected it was going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's such an important part of growth, right? Like I mean, I was too egoed up earlier on to where I mean, I consider it self-sabotage.
100%.
But I was unwilling to peel back the curtain and give other people that would be willing to help, that were there to help, but I wasn't willing to give them that opportunity to help by asking them questions or just being authentic with the situation. And so therefore the help was there. I just wasn't tapping into it, and that was my own fault. And as a result, my finances, my family, my future, like everything's swirling in a toilet bowl because of pride. And we people either have enough self-awareness or not to realize if they're getting in their own way, to realize the opportunities they're taking off the table, the self-limiting belief systems, or the ways in which that they're not even tapping into what's possible because of their own pride. But here's the thing: if you're a bachelor and you're just going about this whole thing by yourself, and then fine, like you're the only person that's being negatively impacted because of your pride and ego. But if you had a family and they're swirling the toilet bowl, or they're seeing less of you or experiencing less opportunity in life because of your pride and ego, like that, like shame on you, right? Like it's not about just us when we have a family. And so it is important that we get out of our own way and that we're open to certain things. And look, like there was a time where I had no idea what a mastermind was. There's probably people listening that don't know what a mastermind is. And I thought personal development or professional development, when I left law enforcement, it was like a Tony Robbins conference. And I wasn't about 100%. To go to a Tony Robbins conference, because I'm not about jumping up and down and saying I love myself. Now, maybe it would be incredible. I have never gone to one, but at the time, that's what I thought it looked like, and I was not interested in it. Yes. And it really wasn't until I had nowhere else to run that I connected with a guy that I knew that was successful, and he was the first time I met him at the Village Coffee. And I said, dude, here's where I'm at, and I don't have anywhere else to run. I've got to figure something out. And he was nice enough to give me his time and his wisdom, and to share with me that it was my fault that I was in the situation I was in, which was really hard to hear, but it was massively important for it to be said and for me to receive it. And then because of him, I was able to start digging myself out. And I knew back then, when I started to experience the benefits of mentorship and coaching, and then eventually I was invited to a mastermind by a guy named Keith Lewis, who owns a company out here, and you had to be doing $1 million a year in revenue just to qualify. And I was nowhere close to that, but he invited me anyways. He convinced the rest of the board to let me join, and I didn't have the money to join, but I didn't have the money to not join either, right? And so,
especially an opportunity like that.
Yeah, and I just knew that, look, like if we want different, we have to do different, right? Pick the area of your life. If you want a better relationship, you've got to do things that are different. If you want different financial, you just have to do different if you want different. And if you don't like the things that you're getting, you have to stop accepting the things that are creating that, right? And so I knew enough at that point to realize I just have to do different, but I had no idea what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant. And so sitting in this mastermind, I was like, every month I looked forward to it, because I was given an opportunity to be amongst others who understood the complexities of business and could help dissect and diagnose the reasons why certain things were working or not working, and that became a pressure valve release for me. Like it was my opportunity to have conversations with others who got it.
I feel it's so frustrating, being an entrepreneur, business owner, but these classes, you show up to one class and some guy's like, oh, this is this. Oh, I have a guy that can solve that for you. And you may have fought for years or couldn't come up with a solution. And the point of these classes was you're in a room full of very successful businessmen that have gone through the trenches, have teams have already built, have the resources and the shipping, they have it all figured, to be to the level they're at. And then you have an opportunity and an open door to come in and sit down. I mean, and they can have a solution for you immediately. Oh, here, call this guy. He's who does everything, all this for me. And you're like,
yeah.
Fuck. Like, I have a buddy right now that I'm trying to get him to come to the next one. And I was like, dude, I called him when I left. I was like, dude, you have to go to one of these. I think it can help you. Because he's got a small business. He's a veteran and just, grinds it out. And he does really well, but, for where he's at. But he's doing it by himself. And so it's scary. And it's like, so here's a question for you. As an entrepreneur, family business, whatever, what's one of the biggest struggles that you see with people? Is it pride? Or as far as taking it to the next level and actually like excelling and growing a business to where you're like, okay, like this feels like a business? Because it feels, I think with the lies on social media and everybody's successful overnight, a lot of people don't have a clue how much it sucks starting a business. And it's not fun. And I at least for us, I've never had a business that we've started being like, this is great. But when you have that long-term goal, and obviously it's something that you're passionate about, I think the only one that we do is fun is the bread but even then we'll get some orders and we're up at 3 a.m. rolling out dough and you're like, oh, God damn it for bread. The kids were standing next to us doing it. What's one of the biggest things that you see people fail or one of their biggest struggles? Because obviously you travel and you're talking to people. Like, what's something as a young entrepreneur that they should be looking out for, or something that can be brought to the light? We're like, oh shit, that is me. Is it like, what's the number one sabotage? What sabotages people the most when it comes to growth, I guess is my question.
So there's something called the law of the lid.
I don't know this.
And so basically, when you step into something new, there's 4 stages of consciousness, right? Like the first stage is that unconscious incompetence where you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
And so without you realizing it, like your lid is on the floor, right? And then the second stage of the consciousness is these conscious incompetence. Now you have awareness to the things that you don't know. And so now it just becomes a matter of what are you going to do with this information? You know you don't know. You're a fish out of water. You've got to figure this out. Now what? And so the lid gets elevated just a little bit, and this is where many entrepreneurs stay.
Okay.
And so they are aware that their lid is low. Although they wouldn't explain it that way because a lot of entrepreneurs don't know the law of the lid, but they feel like they're stuck, and they feel like they're constantly just working their ass off and working really, really hard,
getting nowhere.
But they're not getting anywhere, right? And so rather than figuring out how to elevate their lid, they fight against it. And the problem is that when you have a low lid, and you start bringing other people into the equation, a lot of times it's like your family, right? Like they'll come in and work for cheap. Friends, or you start hiring people, but as the leader, you're the end all be all. So when you have a low lid, and that's like low business acumen, low ability, low skill set, like you're just not very capable of doing the thing. Everybody else below you hits that lid. And over time, it gets to be very frustrating for everybody involved. It's frustrating for the leader that feels stuck, that's not getting anywhere. It's frustrating for the people that want to help move this thing along and see it reach new heights. But they keep slamming up against this lid, and people are only willing to commit so much of their life to that, right? And so, so they'll like part ways with the business or the leader or whatever. And if it's family, it can start causing conflict in the family. So that's where I was for a period of time. And as I work with a lot of entrepreneurs on the coaching side of things, it's like the number one thing that we focus on is elevating the lid. Like there's many things that are common sense, they're just not common knowledge. And as soon as you hear it, light bulbs start turning on. And each one of those light bulbs is a little tick up of your lid, right? And as your lid rises, so does the opportunity, so does the impact, so does the ways in which the team can grow underneath you. If you ever have heard somebody say, like, I just feel like there's no growth opportunity. I feel like, there's no other real options to level up in this business. That's them saying there's a low lid. Like there's a low lid for this business or for this leadership. And so I'm looking for somebody who's got a higher lid so that I can be given more opportunity. I can be stretched in more ways. And so the solution is you've got to elevate your lid. And the way that happens is by investing in yourself. And if more entrepreneurs invested in themselves by way of the books that they read, the podcasts they listen to, the like masterminds they go to, the coaching. Sometimes you have to like make some real investments in yourself, and you have to, acknowledge that I don't have all the answers. This person over here, they've taken all the arrows in their back. There's no point in me taking those arrows, but they're expensive. But for the ones that are willing to get into the arena and pay the cost of admission, their lids start elevating much higher, much faster, and therefore doors start to open up and opportunities start to come forward, and everybody starts to benefit as a result. And that's how you see other entrepreneurs like surpassing those around them. And when you see somebody that's like, man, they've really like done a lot really quickly, they've invested in themselves, and they've understood that they've got to get out of their own way. And sometimes it means that like you grow to a point where you no longer should be the CEO. Like you're the founder and the CEO. You've gotten the business to a point to where your lid is set, and the business is outpacing your ability to elevate your lid. So you've got to get out of the way, hire a new CEO, and let them take over because their lid is much higher.
That's got to be hard for people.
Yeah, but it's the right move, right? Like if you're really mission focused and you're impact focused, and you're not letting pride and ego get in the way, like that's just the right call. And I've had several people in my network that have come to that conclusion, and good on them. And I mean, one company I'm invested in, it was really important. Like this particular guy said, I knew I could get this company to like a 30 million, maybe a 50 million valuation, but he's like, that would be a stretch. And his just awareness to that with his lack of ego, he moved himself out of that equation. He brought somebody else in that had helped build a Fortune 500 company, and now it's a more than $100 million company that this other guy could not have gotten it to. And me as an investor and the others involved, the other stakeholders and shareholders, like we rely on that kind of leadership to happen. Our teams rely on that. Our families rely on that. So it all just comes down to not having a low lid and recognizing that if you're in new territory, of course you're not going to know a lot about it, but don't let your pride be the thing that prevents you from elevating. Like get out of your own way, bring in somebody that is already light years ahead of you, pay whatever that is, do the things that they do, trust the process, and then start reaping the results of having a higher lid that then starts to allow for much bigger, much more exciting opportunities to come forward because now you're actually ready for it.
I feel that all the companies that I've worked with in the past or tried to help, with branding and marketing and all that, the biggest battle is pride with guys every time. And it can get so frustrating.
Yeah.
Is there a time, I know there's not a set time, but for me, I mean, it always comes to a point where it's like it's time to pop smoke and just go, because I feel like, especially if you're watching the owners fight everything, not want to grow, not invest back into the company and help expand things, that it just there just comes a certain point where you're just like, okay, now I'm just spinning wheels and wasting my own time.
Yeah.
And it can be super frustrating. I feel like I've gone through that stage too, where it was pride.
Yeah.
I got it. I'll be on the road. I'll handle it. And then before you know it, you're burned out. You've killed yourself because you're gone all the time. And then you start to, I feel like when you don't swallow the pride, after a amount of time, that's when the animosity starts to come in next. And then it's not fun. You don't see the growth. It's just a pain in the ass. And you're like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, I've fired a few clients over the years because of that.
Really?
Know? Yeah. When they say like, yeah, I already thought about that. Yeah, you know, I don't think that's going to work.
Oh, we already tried that. We already thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, how? Okay.
Yeah. And like, so why are we here then? Like, if you've got it all figured out, like, why are we here?
Exactly.
Like, why do your P&Ls look that way? Or why does nobody want to work for you? Or
we thought about it. Can we implement it? See if it tries.
Yeah.
Well, no, I already broke all the numbers down.
Yeah, it's not going to work. It's not. I already looked up. Okay, then what are we doing exactly? Right? Like then, and so there's been a few times where I've been like, look, this is you've got your mind made up around certain things, and this is not going to work out. So we're just going to part ways. I'm not going to continue to work with you. And you know, you wish the best for them, but at the same time, like, you know, I'm the most successful, wealthy people that I know that also have peace, because that's such an important element of this thing, right? Is being able to be at peace.
It's not worth it if you don't have peace.
No, dude, like, what's it all for? But you know, the people that I know that have all of those things, and you know, I feel very fortunate to have some, but I'm not where other people like in my network are. So like, there's always like that next level is you've got to have a CEO mindset, but a white belt mentality always.
Okay, explain that.
So a CEO mindset is you're always thinking bigger. Like, you're always recognizing that there's more that can be done, and you're always willing to ask that question, like, what's next? You know, so in preparing for our last event in July, you know, Tim Grover was one of our speakers, and so in getting ready to like interview him and have him on stage, I was watching The Last Dance, and that's the documentary of Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a part in there where Jordan is walking out to go get his 5th national championship, and there's a reporter that's asking him, what's better, the first national championship or the 5th? And Jordan says, I'll tell you when we get our 6th, right? And there, that, like, a champion mindset is always like thinking about that what's next, because there is no real point where we just arrive. Like, there's no other place for us to go. And that's that CEO mindset. But the white belt mentality is that I don't have all this shit figured out. Like, there are a lot of areas to where if I pretend like I've got things figured out that I don't, I'm just getting in the way of what's possible. And so maintaining a position of being curious and asking questions and being receptive to feedback and seeking feedback, that's that white belt mentality to say, I don't know. There are black belts out there, and I want to learn from them.
Yep.
Like, teach, like, what, you know, that's one of the things I love about jiu-jitsu. There's a saying, you know, in jiu-jitsu, an inch is like a mile, right? Because you shift your body just very slightly, or you change your grips a little bit, and it makes a difference between a submission or not, or points or not. And it's like these little nuance things. So white belt mentality is like, teach me, help me learn, no matter where you're at in the stage of things. Like, there's always more that can be learned. So you maintain those two things simultaneously, like, you will be unstoppable, and you will achieve whatever goals you want to set. Like, you will hit them. But it's when one or the other is not part of the equation, now that's where people start getting into their own way.
Interesting. I'm sure you see that quite a bit.
Mm.
What's your biggest legacy you want to leave behind?
So I want to be, like, for me, being known to other people doesn't matter. You know, this last event we did, we had some incredible people that were on that stage, and I had the least amount of time of any of them. And then we went from there, and then we hosted the world's largest a cold plunge event where we were raising money for pediatric cancer, and we had about 750 people there. A big setup. That piece of it probably cost me $40,000. Mm-hmm. Big stage. Flew in an MC from out of the area. Alec Simon and his crew were up there doing the drumming stuff, and I didn't step on that stage a single time. I grabbed the microphone at no point, and I was just one of the 750 people there. And after the fact, some people were like, they were surprised by that. Like, I didn't take that as an opportunity to brand myself around promote being the yourself. Person that did this and brought this to the community. And I respond in the same way of like, this is not about me. Like, we're here to raise money for kids with cancer. We're here to make a difference. And so for me, legacy is not about being known to other people. If I could do away with social media, I would do it in an instant.
That's what I'm working toward.
Yeah, man.
I tell everybody, when you know that I made it, I'm like, what the fuck ever happened to that dude?
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, exactly. Just like
no announcement.
Yeah. So it's for me, it is far more important that that my son continue to grow up in a home where he gets to experience a real healthy relationship between his parents, the two people he loves the most, the two superheroes in his life, that he gets to experience what a real relationship looks like, and that he gets to continue to have amazing opportunities that are presented as a result of him seeing what my wife and I have been building, and that he continues to be this incredible human that is going to give more to the world than he's going to ever take, and will build a family accordingly, and like that my bloodline and like what I did will live on through him.
Continue.
That's for me, that's legacy, and building opportunities for people that help others, and they have no idea like I was ever a part of it.
Yep.
So I love having teams where I get to provide things for them as a result of being on my team that others wouldn't pay them the same, or they wouldn't treat them the same, and they have families, and so like that as like a split of the legacy piece is that ripple effect that we create. I want to have a massive ripple effect, but I could care less if anybody knows that I was the one that threw that pebble.
I feel it feels so much better. Us having a charity, I hate giving speeches. I can step on stage anywhere. I can tell you, just give me a topic. I have no problem public speaking. I'm very, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I wish nobody ever knew I was the face. I hate being the face of the organization. It drives me nuts because it's not about me. I just want to help vets and I want to help law enforcement, and I could care less if anybody ever knew it was me. I'm 100% with you on that one. I just, and like I had a bunch of them. While I had the security company, I had 155 employees, and being able to help the kids that were supporting their whole families, like that's what felt the best, was being able to just give to people and not having, we had it was a horrible, tragic incident. It was a murder-suicide of two of my employees, both of them Army guys, and one came home, caught his best friend with his wife, and obviously what happened there. But the kid that got killed, or the kid that killed himself, he didn't have a pot to piss in, and his mom couldn't even speak English, and I felt it was the right thing to do. And they weren't even going to give this kid, because since he killed somebody, they weren't going to give him a military burial or anything, and his mom couldn't even afford a casket. And I took care of it all. But it was one of those things. It was like to be able to like help somebody, but not have to be like, look. I think that's one of my biggest thing is with like social and these people that are like, look at me, I'm helping. And it's like, if you're truly helping, go help the homeless.
Yeah.
You don't need to film it and then put it on it. And I get it. That helps raise money, or you're making money off of it to keep your views going. Let's go help.
Mm-hmm.
Last two questions. I'll let you get out of here.
Yeah.
As a father to a son, and any of these youngs, I got a lot of dads that listen. What is one big key piece of advice of raising a son in this generation?
Don't be a hypocrite. I think if you want, I think as all parents, we inherently want our kids to grow up with better circumstances than what we grew up with, right? And we want to see them succeed, and we want to see them thrive. But I think that there's a real problem when dads tell their kids to act in a certain way, or treat people in a certain way, or do things in a certain way that their kids don't even see their dad doing, right? Or their parents doing. And so I think you have to be that. If you want your kids to be respectful, if you want them to treat people right, if you want people or kids that are honest and keep commitments that they make to themselves or others, you've got to be that person first.
For sure. That's a good one. Last question. Coming from a broken home and watching your mom marry a bunch of guys over the years, what's the key to making it work with your wife? Because obviously she's involved with a lot of things that you're doing. What's a really key part of having a healthy marriage and being able to work with your spouse?
Well, I think first and foremost, you take divorce off the table.
100%.
It's not even an option.
Not even spoke of.
Yeah, it's just not an option. I mean, it's it's interesting, dude, because to be successful and like to achieve uncommon success, there's an element of like aggressiveness and like tenacity and risk taking and things that can, I think, make somebody selfish. And I think you can find yourself thinking about how much you put into things, or how much risk you've taken, or how much you've done, and how successful the business has become, and forget about your spouse in the process, right? And I think you have to have self-awareness to realize like this is the person you chose to do life with. Like we get to make a lot of choices, but none of them is as important as like who you choose to do life with. That one person that you're going to create a family with, you're going to create a future with, you're going to create a legacy with. And so maybe you didn't choose wisely. Maybe you were a little bit too rushed to get into something. But you start having kids, and you're the superhero in your kids' eyes, and their mother is the superhero in their kids' eyes. You have an obligation to your kids to figure it out, right? And to not have them growing up in a house where there's no love, there's no connection, there's no so I think you take divorce off the table. Compromise is important. Understanding that the other side has their own like desires and like goals and dreams and aspirations, and you've got to know what they are, so you can actually help them achieve what's really important to them, and vice versa, right? There's 3 relationships in every relationship. There's the one that you have with yourself, the one that they have with themselves, and then the one that you have together. And so in any way that you want to help people, especially your own family, like you have to be whole first. Like you have to be in a place where you can actually give to others. And so you have to make that investment yourself. You have to give yourself permission to make make yourself a priority. You have to give the other side permission to make themselves a priority, so that both sides have the ability to contribute. And it's just work, dude. I mean, it's just like it's worth fighting for, and you gotta fight for it. Mm-hmm. And if you take divorce off the table, you recognize that you owe it to your kids to create an environment for them that's healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, for them to grow up in. That you're the two people that your kids want to see get along and love and appreciate each other, and then you're willing to do the work. You're gonna be just fine, right? But if you're not willing to do the work, you don't prioritize the kids. You're willing to explore divorce, you're unwilling to take it off the table. Like it's an egg timer that'll eventually go off.
It sucks. You see so many marriages that like something so minute happens and then they split over it. It's like, bro, like what? Mm-hmm. Like you can't. There's no working this out.
Yeah.
Oh man, she's set. It's like, no. Mm-hmm. You're not beating the shit out of her. You're not a drunk. She's not a drug addict. Mm-hmm. Talk, communicate, make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's tough in the early days. I mean, I was an asshole for a long time.
Well, you're just figuring it out, right? Yeah. Like especially you get together young. I mean, you don't know a lot about life. You have very limited life experience, right? And that's the thing is that I think society has normalized divorce
for sure.
It's made it acceptable when it really is just taking the easy path. And it's like, but it takes a lot of doing the work yourself. Like it takes a lot of recognizing like, maybe I am an asshole. Maybe I am selfish. Maybe whatever, right? And you can have that CEO mindset and white belt mentality in your own relationship where you can be like, that's probably fair. Like that point's probably fair. And look, like, I mean, I don't know how many blowouts and arguments and, nights I've slept on the couch over the, 20 plus years that my wife and I have been together. But there's no question that like we're getting old together. Yep. Like that, like divorce is not a thing.
Not a thing.
And like there's turbulence ahead of us, and we'll just hit it.
It's sad to see especially when people split over money. Fine, like that. I mean, there was a point where we were counting pennies to keep lights on, but it was never an option. It never even, because it's just money.
Yeah.
Get through it, you'll make more.
People know how to argue about money. They don't know how to talk about it, though.
That was, I think, having the organization was one of those big learning points for us, because we used to fight back in the day over it. Because we didn't know what we were doing. Mm-hmm. And then once we realized, like, it's not even ours. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to help these guys. And then we went from arguing over money to talking about money, that everything after that, I feel, was just like, all right, well, we screwed this up. Like, okay, how do we bounce back? Or, okay, like, those are going to be tight during these times. We're going all in on this. And so instead of it being a fight, we're just like, all right, well, how do we fix it? And then you get through it so much quicker, too. Instead of it dragging out and the animosity and stressing on it. Okay, what's the solution?
Yeah.
Well, this isn't like, we're going to bitch and complain over this. How do we figure it out? I think that's a big thing, is instead of learning how to not fight, but communicate over money.
Yeah.
Dude. It could be stressful, but I mean, at the end of the day, you can make more.
You can make more. I mean, making more is typically the answer, right? Like if
easier route.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes making money is like, I think for you and I, we've figured out how to make money, and so now it is much easier now.
I don't want to say easy, but it's, I mean, going through I feel if I had to go and I'd get a job anywhere before it would just be a nightmare to get a divorce, to go through that process, rather than, okay, we got to make an extra $1,500 this month. Yeah. Cool. Like, what do we got to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think when you operate as a team, like that's, those kinds of questions get answered a whole lot easier, right? Like, okay, hey, what are we looking like? Now we're fortunate. We had our time in the arena where it was like, how are we going to do this? I mean, there was a time where I came home and my wife was crying herself to sleep because she did not know how to, like, the dollars were not there in the account versus the stack of bills on the sink, right? So we've lived it, but at the same time, we're also evidence about you can absolutely come out on the other side of it. And dude, like, it's amazing what happens when you just take certain things out of the equation. Like, you take like bankruptcy off of the equation, or you take divorce off the equation, or like not hitting your objective off the equation. Like, it's just when it becomes a non-negotiable, then it just becomes a conversation around how are we going to do this.
But you truly have to believe that.
Yeah.
That's, I feel, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be like, okay, divorce is an option, but like, you don't talk about it. It's not a joke. It's not a threat. Never.
Yeah.
Off the table. And you truly have to believe it, because when those times get tough and it's the easy card to pull, like, you don't pull it, because it's not a card in that deck of cards that you can play.
Yeah.
And so it forces you to be like, shit. All right. Like, how do we get through this?
And it's worth fighting for, dude. Like, 100%. That's the thing, is that, you know, if anybody's listening to this and they're like not in the healthy of places in the relationship, it is worth fighting for.
100%.
And it can get better, and it takes work, but it's worth doing the work for, right? So,
especially if you got kids.
Yeah, man. Just figure out take ownership over whatever the things are that's causing issues. Right? Like, there's probably some shit that you own, some shit that they own. Like, you got to do the work together, but it's worth it. Yeah. And that's probably one of the coolest parts about our journey, is the kind of inspiration that we have been able to give others by being in such a problematic place, and being in such a different place now. Because we just represent what's possible. You know, that cycles can get broken, that, you know, you can get in the driver's seat of your own life. You can create things that are really exciting and substantial. And that, like, if you're willing to just continue being happy but never satisfied, be happy with the progress but not satisfied with what is, like, keep leaning into the adversity, lean into the growth, lean into the opportunity. Like, there's no limit. Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.
We didn't even talk any law enforcement, U.S. Marshals, undercover. I guess I get to have you back on. We're going to talk all that. But, yeah, dude, this was awesome. I'm glad we finally got to sit down, and not on the golf course or some networking event. We finally got to shoot the shit a little bit. I'm excited for the future, man. We got a lot of big things coming. Yeah. I hope you're ready.
Yeah, man. I was born ready. You're waiting on me wasting time. I was born ready. Yeah. It's gonna be great, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always, man. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you. And I'm looking forward to the next one, and look forward to the future working together.
Thanks, Christy, for being a badass producer over there.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Yep. Who would have thought, huh? Thanks, dude. Appreciate you.
Yes, team.
Cool. Dude,
that's a wrap.